mutilations. But did you know that there are several known cases of people being mutilated, and people bringing in aliens for the explanations of what happened? And there are also historical ties to some of the so-called UFO crash retrievals, which are very, very interesting. I wanted to explore these concepts, and I remembered that John had once, we had once talked about this. I know that many of you have asked me, where is John? And he sort of disappeared from Twitter. We can ask him about that tonight. But in any case, I'm glad to reconnect with him. And selfishly, instead of talking to him off air like a normal person, I'm going to bring him right on, and we're going to catch up here and also get into alien mutilations and the crash retrieval programs. Some of you know that I'm on the fence with the alien crash retrieval programs. Part of me has seen that it is very likely, in my estimation, that something has crashed, not made of this earth, and we may have recovered it. Where did it go? What happened to it? All of these things are incredible mysteries to me. And I can think of no better person than John William Warner IV to help me explore those mysteries. Let's bring him in here. Welcome, John.
I'm here, Stephen.
Yes, and you brought your big-ass pyramid, and it's your wedding anniversary. Congratulations. Congratulations to you and your beautiful wife. 10 years, right?
10 years, very happy. Never had an argument.
She told you to say that, I bet.
No. We do argue the fact that she doesn't keep enough gas in her car. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Warning lights are flashing. The tires are low on air.
I think that's the curse of a man. Every time I never borrow my wife's car, but every time I do, it's on E. You know, and you go, oh, I hope I make it to the gas station. You know,
there's some sort of metaphysical issue going on in hyperspace that's really causing this problem.
But listen, for those unaware too, you are also the cousin of Christopher Mellon, and you have been like, I don't know how to say this politely, but I'm going to try. You have been critical of some of the claims and projects that Christopher Mellon has been involved in for quite some time now. And I think that's interesting, you know, and both of you are from very wealthy, some would say famous families. And
well, we're the same family, the Mellon family.
Yeah. So
yeah, we know each other going back to camp when we were kids. And, you know, I met him through the years. I knew his brother, Matthew. You know, they're very nice people. He and his wife, they're wonderful people. I take umbrage with what he's doing right now with Lou Elizondo. You know, they're lying by omission. You know, there's no other way to say it. I mean, you know, their program, you know, with the UAP task force and Senator Rubio Gillibrand, and now it's, you know, Avril Haines, and you know, she's Undersecretary of Defense, and now they've got this new guy, Gary Nolan, you know, and actually, I like the physicist they on their team now. Was Travis Taylor? I like him. You know, he did the redneck rocket thing on the History Channel.
Yeah, he's entertaining. You got to give him that. I'll give him that.
But you know, they're doing this wimpy, you know, childish dog and pony show. Yeah, I'm critical in that vein.
Yeah, and I wondered if you had heard of, you know, Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post is really kind of going after some
of him, yeah,
more ridiculous claims. And recently he released a video, and I didn't know that you had seen this, but it's very short. It's like 20 seconds, but I want to play this video for you about your cousin. This is made by Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post. And by the way, fair use, we're going to be discussing the video, but I thought it important to get your reaction. Let's and it's funny too, John. Here we go.
Now, goddamn it, Bobby. I don't care what Chris Mellon said on Fox News. You're not giving money to that Blink 182 fella.
But Dad, they promised to build a spaceship.
No one's building a spaceship, Bobby.
But the Daily Mail reported that.
Those people are all insane.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it kind of says it all. You know, their whole program with Tom DeLonge was goofy and weird. I mean, even by UFO disclosure standards, it was goofy and weird. I was like, what the hell? I mean, Stephen Greer called me up and he's like, what is this going on? I'd never even heard of Tom DeLonge. What was it, 5 years ago? I had to look him up. I'm not a punk rock fan.
And you're not a 12-year-old girl, so you wouldn't know about his music. Yeah.
You know, the whole skateboard thing. I mean, whatever, man. Do your own thing. But it was weird. And now Chris, his latest thing was he was at the UFO conference in Barcelona. And lo and behold, Linda Moulton Howe interviewed him. And boy, was that a boring shit show. I mean, he said nothing. And she said nothing. And, you know, Linda Moulton Howe, I mean, 40 years ago, my mother gave me the book, Alien Harvest, about the cattle mutilations, because my mom owned a piece of land in Colorado where there were mutilations. And they had been seeing, you know, Black Hawk helicopters and whatnot. And, you know, this is in the early 80s, you know, and so Linda Moulton Howe was on the forefront of that. But I'll tell you what some people in D.C. told me, my sort of circle of, you know, ONI and CIA retired people, is they said, and I can't prove this, but they said that Linda Moulton Howe sold out way back in the late 80s because they told her, somebody, CIA or somebody said, you know, you can speak on anything you want, but not the human mutilations.
Yeah, that's interesting. So she's allowed to talk about cows getting mutilated by aliens, but not humans.
Cows, apparently, you know, and I think back in the 80s, that would have really freaked some people. I would have been freaked out, for sure. The cows were bad enough. I remember that I saw one, you know, on the ranch. It was all desiccated. It dried up in the sun, you know, on the Utah border. It was very hot. But you could tell a laser scalpel was used. And I think the story is that the U.S. military began helping the Greys and maybe some others do all these mutilations and abductions, you know, MILABs, military abductions. And Greer says some were fake with the little suits. And I think Richard Doty says some of them were fake. They had little people in rubber suits, you know, but that's also talking about the military being weird. I mean, that's just beyond the pale.
Yeah, even the idea of faking faking an alien abduction. I mean, I've heard of these things.
Well, it was because they used them for blackmail. They captured world leaders and they said, okay, you're going to feed you to the Greys and they're going to put you in test tubes and sell your DNA on the black market.
That's pretty wild.
You know, and they were like, oh shit, I'll do whatever you want. So I think the U.S. military was doing, you know, parts of the military, the black ops parts, when I say that. Because that's a distinction we need to clarify. 90% of the military has no idea all this shenanigans going on. And, you know, all the high tech, they have a little bit of idea, you know, UFOs are flying around, the Tic Tac stuff, and the Nimitz, the Navy guys. You know, I was on board an aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise, ironically enough, in 1995, and I saw UFOs off the fantail with the crew, and the lights, they were orange, huge, bright orange lights on the horizon, and then they just disappeared. One blinked out so fast you could barely see it. And, you know, one of the officers in command said, naval flares, everyone disperse. And I remember Chief Petty Officer saying, you know, they always tell us that's bullshit. You know, we know the difference between naval flares and UFOs. And so, you know, I spent 2 nights on board the carrier with my dad, and it's true. I mean, the Navy's known about all that stuff. And just because the black ops do the MILABs, that doesn't mean that that's just a cover also. So they can say more plausible deniability. So it's like, well, they're, you know, somebody's going to ask Chris Mellon about alien abductions. I think Linda Moulton Howe did. And he said, oh, that was just the military having fun or something. You know, that's what they're going to do. They're going to use it as a cover story, you know, the fake abductions.
And do you really believe that fake abductions are happening? The military is like, you and I disagree on some things, and I don't think Greer's a very credible source, but he calls it stagecraft. That the United States government does something called stagecraft, where they pretend to do these abductions. You think that's really happening?
That's a point. I think some of that is real. if you think about it, it's like aliens have been landing and abducting people forever. And so they finally got somebody clever said, hey, why don't we do it ourselves in our black triangle, and no one will know the difference, and we'll get them to tell us what we want, you know. And so think about it. It's a great way to kidnap, you know, a world leader or a senator or, you know, who knows, anyone, and say, you know, hey, we're the Greys, you know, surrender your prerogatives, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard these stories, but I think the problem for me is that I heard this from Greer, maybe Doty, both of which are, to me, maybe problematic sources.
Doty is a counterintelligence officer.
Oh, sure. I'm well aware. Yeah.
You know, I'm a friend with Greer. I don't agree with everything he says, but he is a friend. And so, I mean, the stuff that he's, you know, he's been on about for 30 years, a lot of that checks out. And that's just for me, you know, I can't, you know, everyone should think for themselves, but, you know, it does check out. And Richard Doty, I think he tells part of the truth, and then part of it is just counterintelligence and whatnot. It's weird that he never used to say anything, you know, it was just all hot air. And now he's talking about abductions. And I think that's like, oh, we captured an alien and he, you know, the alien went wild and it kidnapped a family in a station wagon and took off. You know, he tells these stories now on Gaia and whatnot. And, you know, it's like, what are we supposed to make of that? You know, I think he's telling some of the truth, but it's wrapped up in other fabrications. And I'm trying to think, well, what's his angle?
Yeah, I don't know. I think his angle might be
always intel.
I think his angle might be cash. And, you know, for Doty, I thought he was an interesting character just because so much of the UFO mythology we can determine came straight from him. The Serpo files, he's been accused of floating that story. And, of course, the Benowitz case. And I just don't know what to make of him. And then now he's saying some things. Oh, by the way, thank you, Jason M. We appreciate your kindness, generosity, and support. I think that lately he said some ridiculous things, like he has a list of all the people in and out of Area 51 for a 10-year period.
Who gives a shit? You know, he's
well, he said that because now he's floating that Bob Lazar is on that list. And yeah. I mean, I don't know. I asked
Area 51. I believe that.
But I asked around, and like, if he had a list of everybody that flew in and out of Area 51 for 10 years, the government would come and arrest him and take it. They wouldn't just let him have.
He's still working for the government. He's working for the man.
Well, maybe that's why they haven't taken it.
He's got an approved list, and he's got a script, and they say you can talk about this story and that story and that story, and probably some of them are true, some of them are fake, because if he's grilled someday by someone genuine, you know, he can say, well, you know, that story was just a cover story. And so it's not true, you know, and so they always like to have a lot of plausible deniability in their little wallet so they can pull it out.
Yeah, I think I just take a lot of what he says with a grain of salt, because
oh yeah,
you know, I'm a computer science guy, and another computer science guy sort of proved that the Serpo files came from his IP. His known IP at the time. Yeah, but in other words, it came from his computer, and he denies that he wrote it or whatever. And then we have the Benowitz case where he purposefully misled people to believing it was aliens when it wasn't. He filled up Linda Moulton Howe with a bunch of fake information that he now claims was real. And now he's saying, I have a list of everybody in and out of Area 51. He may have been the person that did the MJ-12 documents, and now he's got news stories. And of course, I guess to keep the gig on Gaia and keep those guest appearances rolling, he needs new stories, you know?
Well, I can only comment that my dad said that most of the MJ-12 files were legit. So, you know, people can.
Yeah, a lot of people think that early dump was real, and then later people tagged on
it was given to. It was on microfiche, and it was given to someone in California and Hollywood, I think, and then it was given to Stanton Friedman. And
and Bill Moore as well.
All my military people say Stanton Friedman was the real deal. He was not a CIA or anything. He was the real deal. But Doty, you know, they'll blame a bunch of stuff on Doty. You know, I don't know. He's another tool in their toolbox. So they're telling us about alien abductions and alien crash landings, survived ETs, you know. But again, you know, this is like stuff that would be exciting in the 1980s, but not really today. That's my opinion. It's pretty boring. You know, what Chris Mellon talks about, very boring. My wife and I fell asleep.
He's kind of like Elizondo in that he talks a lot without saying anything. He doesn't really say much.
You know, there might be some people out in the universe. We don't know. It's a mystery. And they keep saying that. And it's like, what are you guys in the 3rd grade? I mean, this is nuts. You know, I mean, of course, the universe and the cosmos is full of infinite amounts of people and ETs and everything. You know, we're all equal citizens of the cosmos. I believe that. You know, but these guys are just like talking nonsense. I'll go back to what I said in our original interview. I really think they're doing a good job poking the disclosure movement, you and me and everyone, to up our game, because they're never going to disclose any of the heavy duty stuff. They're going to let the public, the disclosure movement, everybody in it do it for them. Because
it seems to me like,
how do you disclose without disclosing, you know, the factions, different factions in the deep state? And some factions are like, you disclose too much and we'll, you know, blow up the earth. And so they have to sort of disclose without really disclosing much. And
this is happy. It's this controlled disclosure, like they're going to give us their narrative
make
version
everyone
of
else
it.
Do it for them. And actually, disclosure from normal folks that aren't government, military, or spooks, that's where it really needs to come from, because people have to accept it on their own terms. You know, everyone has to come to grips with all this information, with, you know, what's true, what's not, or whatever, but they have to do it on their own terms. You know, that's why I always tell people, you know, think for yourself and come to your own conclusions, because, you know, those of us who have been exposed to some weirdness in our lives and some interesting experiences, if that's all they are, you know, I've formulated, you know, some things on my own, but it's like, you know, we're all doing the best we can. I don't think there's, you know, it's like these documents that keep floating up and they're like, oh, this is proof. No, documents are proof, you know, and, you know, people making the narrative really boring. And I've looked at Richard Dolan's YouTube channel, and he's like, we have to figure out UFO behavior and reporting structures and whether or not they're square, round, or triangular. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't think any of that is relevant. I think, you know, if they're here, I don't care if they're here in a triangle ship, a round ship, a square ship.
Yeah, who gives a shit? I mean, yeah, if ET spacecraft is somewhere near a military installation, yeah, it should be monitored very closely, and I'm sure it is. But I'm sure most militaries around the world, especially ours, know exactly who that is and where they're from. You know, it's not this mystery that all these guys are putting out there. Jeremy Corbell, and, you know, they're doing this, like you said, they're doing this fluffer circle jerk. And, you know, Joe Rogan and everything, you know, Joe Rogan has Chris Mellon on. Well, if Joe Rogan has Chris Mellon on, that means he's approved.
Whereas, you may be right. Yeah. Yeah. And some people have wondered why Elizondo didn't.
Everyone else is not approved. I'm sorry, but I'm in the not approved camp. I mean, they're just going around in circles.
Yes.
They're just going around in circles, the same old bullshit, you know, boring stuff. Oh, a UFO was seen, you know, over, you know, Fort Meade, Maryland. Okay, and that's it. You know, I mean, that's all they do. They're talking about the subject, but they're not really talking about it.
Yeah, and I have this problem with Lou Elizondo. Like he'll say stuff and then he hides behind his NDA. You know, right. Like we may have crashed retrievals. Well, where and what? How do you know that? Oh, my NDA. Like he couldn't say that even if it was an NDA or clearance issue. He would lose his clearance immediately. So he's hiding behind this NDA constantly every time he gets in a pickle, and he goes right up to a line, but he doesn't cross it. And the games with TTSA, you know, I have a real problem with the fact that they collected $2 million from the public, promised everybody a spaceship, and nothing. And now they're collecting money again. But Elizondo and Mellon have since left.
Yeah, it's all a game. And what worries me now is people like Professor Gary Nolan, who is this physicist in California, I think Caltech or something.
Yeah, I think he's Lou Elizondo's replacement.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that, and it's like, uh-oh, because this guy's got scientific, he's got a lot of patents. He's a smart guy, but I saw an interview with him about UFOs with Tucker Carlson. And of course, Tucker Carlson on Fox is one of the approved talking heads. And so they're just sitting there jerking each other off, going, oh, well, it's a mystery. We're going to have to solve it. And then they mention alien, and Tucker starts to laugh again. So they're back to the CNN giggle factor. And so
yeah, like this is funny. Yeah, cue the X-Files music.
They're playing cutesy and it's nonsense. But that's what worries me. And they got this guy Travis Taylor, who's a physicist. He's a rocket scientist. He's an astrophysicist. But it's
other than that, he's very intelligent.
Come on, if you're an astrophysicist, you know that the U.S. military's had anti-gravity forever. He knows. He's just playing along with the game.
Could be.
And,
yeah, he's an interesting character, though, and I kind of like him because he uses any excuse he can to blow things up or to shoot up rockets, and I'm kind of that kind of guy.
Look at his interviews; he just talks about the same brand of low-level, safe, scare-free bullshit nonsense. It's all the same. Oh well, we've got to figure out the tic-tac physics, and it's like Jack Sarfati's forum. I mean, it's like, guys, you're not going to figure this out with physics, linear physics. From the 20th century, you need nonlinear, hyperdimensional quantum physics to figure all this stuff out. And they're like, oh no, I work for CIA.
I think you're exactly right. And here's one example of why you need quantum physics if you are traveling between star systems.
Quantum. Everything.
No, but think about this, John. If you're traveling between star systems, you can't wait 20 years to get a message to your home base and back. The only way that they could be communicating in a near instant manner, no matter where they are in the universe, is by some form of quantum communication. So quantum physics may be not only the key to how they can communicate in real time, but also how they can travel these vast star systems, even without. I've often thought quantum physics is where it's at when it comes to like long-range space travel.
100+ years ago in Germany, especially. Non-linear and quantum physics, you could bilocate, trilocate, quadlocate. I mean, everybody, it's said that and I believe it, that every time happens all at once, and everyone can bilocate or trilocate or quadlocate, whatever, all at once. And so communication is instantaneous. If you're in the Andromeda galaxy and I'm here in Washington, D.C., we can talk like we are now, because that's the nature of time and quantum physics. It's like everything exists at once everywhere. It's just a perception and other things. That's the difference.
Yeah, I'm sure that somebody's going to figure out quantum communication between star systems. They have. Yeah,
I've heard the Navy has had underwater quantum communication since the 80s. And I know Hal Puthoff worked on that because he and Chris Mellon hit me up. They were like, hey, you want to invest some millions of dollars in this quantum underwater communication system? I said, guys, the Navy's had that for 50 years. Where the fuck have you been? And you were like, oh, no, mine's better. And I'm like, well, I'm not investing in that shit.
Yeah, the one thing I've noticed about Hal Puthoff is that he always needs people to invest millions of dollars.
Yeah, and like,
he wasted so much money. I don't trust him. I wouldn't invest $1 with him because he wasted all this money. And then he said that Uri Geller had superpowers. And it's pretty well established that Uri Geller used magic tricks on him, and he fell for it. So as intelligent as he may be, he's also very gullible, and he always needs money. He's like these disclosure guys are like televangelists. Like they always need the next injection of money, and then disclosure will come.
I understand people. You work hard. I mean, this is, you should be paid for your work, but soliciting money is very creepy. And you were right about Corey Good. He's like, I've got to sue all my detractors. I need money.
Yes.
It's crazy expensive. And I'm like, this guy's out of his fucking mind. Not only is he and Wilcock are batshit, but they're out of their minds asking people for money. And so sleazy and underhanded and cheesy. Forget it. I mean, that whole thing is just nonsense.
What's the matter? You don't believe in blue chicken aliens and
it doesn't
sphere
matter.
beings?
He could have been telling the truth about everything, but the way they portrayed themselves and said, "Oh, I need a comic book and I need a film done and I need money for my lawyers and Wilcox divorce," and they just promoted themselves like shit. Now, I don't care if everything they said was a lie or everything they said was true. I don't care. What I care about is that they're manipulating people's minds in a bad way. And, you know, I'll debate them on that. You know, it's crazy. You don't get up there and say, hey, everyone, I need money for my lawyers because I'm suing all the bullies. You know, what a candy ass piece of shit. You know,
yeah, it's really ridiculous. And at first he called it his legal defense fund, but that's a total lie. It's not. It's not a defense fund. You're the guy suing everybody. It's your attack fund. You know.
Yeah, do something for humanity instead of and a lot of those secret space program folks. I'm in communication with some of them. They're very smart, and they're like, we can't stand those guys. They ruined everything, and I think that's the point. I think somebody either, mind controlled them, did a great job, and, they fucked it all up. And now everyone thinks, well, they're just on board with the Iron Sky, narrative, which is to make fun of everything. And so it further muddles the entire disclosure movement, UFO, ET history narrative. And that's the whole point. It's counterintelligence basics. If you can't destroy something, it's like a rare item. Like, I have this. Oh my God, I've got Rodin's. There's only 5 of these Rodin sculptures in the world. The Thinker, and it's like the Chinese go, okay, we're going to screw you over, and they produce 50 million of them. It muddies the water. The value goes down. The value of the information goes down.
I agree with you on Corey Goode and David Wilcock. And before those guys came in and destroyed secret space program research. Before them, it was people that were doing real research and credible
Richard Dolan
things.
Was part of that. He coined the term. Joseph P. Farrell, his books, Bosley, also Peter Levenda, my friend Nick Cook, his book, The Hunt for Zero Point. Igor Witowski, who found Kammler and the Wunderwaffe stuff in the Polish and Russian archives. These guys, plus a few others, built the granite hard foundation for the breakaway German civilization. And all they do, people are like, well, it went to America and Argentina, and maybe they went to Antarctica to do something, study walruses and penguins. And it's like, they built the foundation. You can't deny it now. It's there. It's there in the mainstream history. You just have to, it takes a lot of work to piece it together. But it's like, we know the Germans had a base down there and all this. And this gets into the secret space program. So here comes, 10 years ago, I think.
Here comes these guys to shoot in all kinds of ridiculous stuff.
And they said, well, there's the Nachtwaffen in space and there's all this stuff. But that was built on a solid granite foundation of research. Decades of research. And now everyone's backpedaling because they're like, well, they've gone off on this crazy narrative. And it's like 40 years ago, the basics we're talking about now was considered crazy, the crazy narrative. Everyone's like, oh, no, the UFOs are all nice people. And it's like, no, they're abducting people and doing genetic experiments. And, oh, by the way, we got missing in Vietnam and all this stuff. You have to do the long history of it. And so I'm sorry, I'm doing a research paper on it. I want to dig up as much as I can about the Project Paperclip and what all the Germans did in the United States. And it's really hard to find them, but there were thousands, 5,000 or something. And it's like, what were they doing? And, all these secret bank accounts, in Argentina and the Chase Bank in Manhattan, there's this foundation for the secret space program, both American and German. There's a lot to support it. Now, how big it is out there, I don't know. No one's quite sure, but there's no doubt in my mind it exists. The Space Force were created as a cover story for that shit. I couldn't believe it. When the phrase Space Force news came out, I thought it was a joke when it first came out. And then, you know, my wife was like, nope, it's not a joke. I couldn't believe it. I was like, they're
sounds like a joke. Space Force. Space Force, yeah. John. It's Space Force.
They're building a cover story for everything. And they're like, oh, the new spaceship you saw in the sky over Manhattan? Oh, that's Space Force. And it's like, oh, those aliens with military officers in the Pentagon? Well, that's Space Force. So they've got an out for everything. I mean, it's not going to last long. American people aren't that stupid. They're going to be like, wait a minute. You can't. What about all the millions of sightings? Well, we don't talk about that. Let Chris Mellon answer that.
Yeah, somebody said Space Force.
They can't pass the buck in this UAP task force, the UAP office, on the Congress, back to the Pentagon, back to the CIA, back to the Space Force, and just beat the ball around. They can't do it forever. It's like a juggler just adding more balls. And they're juggling with like 12, 15, 20 balls, hundreds of balls. But at some point, it's all going to come crashing down. You can't keep adding balls to the juggle. You know, that's the simplest way.
You can't keep adding balls to the juggle. I'm going to remember that. That's actually a good analogy
for
what they're trying to do.
They're really juggling now. UAP task force. No, ATIP. No, AARO. You should look up all the. I'll send you my article that I'm writing. I'm writing a serious article. I don't think anyone will print it, but I'm going to write it for people. I'm going to send it.
That's it.
And it's like, you can't even believe the amount of acronyms around the UFO file that they create and they get rid of. Of course, they don't get rid of anything. It just goes to a different department. They fill it with different people. And so there's all these AARO, Aerial Reconnaissance Anomaly Office. What the fuck is that? They're just, oh, you need to talk to the AARO for UFO information. Oh, you need to call Senator Gillibrand on Capitol Hill, the UAP task force. No, you need to, and around and around and around the juggle goes. But they're adding more and more balls. And
John, I just want to make you aware that there was a troll in the chat, and people are very. This guy is not very. Listen, you and I agree on some things, disagree on others. And because I'm not yelling and screaming at you every time I disagree with you, somebody is upset. I'm just letting you know.
Feel free.
And but here's the thing, John. You know how tough this job is, because for some reason people think just because I talk to somebody that I agree with 100% everything that they're saying, and that's just not the way the world works. I like John because he's into these wild things and the wooer side that I don't get into very much.
Don't worry about that.
So I can get the updates from John of the more esoteric or like stranger things, because sometimes I put on the brakes for that stuff. But I know John, like he will listen to all of it, read all of it, and then make up his mind about what he believes, like he was talking about earlier.
What sticks to the wall and makes sense logically. And a lot of times it doesn't make sense logically, but it fits. The puzzle pieces fit.
Yeah.
So I remember 20 years ago, I was like trying to get my mind around time travel. That kind of freaked me out 25 years ago when I first heard about it. I knew space travel was time travel, but the fact that they could militarize it, that was something new to me. And I was like, oh shit, Project Looking Glass. And I quietly asked around my friends about this Project Looking Glass. And most said they don't want to go there, didn't want to talk about it. But my one guy said, yeah, it's real. It's a little different.
You think that's really real? But come on, John. The sources for that are Dan Burrish and Bob Lazar. Those are the primary sources, though.
Time travel is part of space travel. It has to be. And so
time being relative, sure.
Yeah, time is happening all at once, and so you can access the past, present, and future with enough technology. It's really not that hard once you get over sort of the freakiness of it, because we've grown up in a reality where they've taught us about linear time only. And so once you get over the hump, it's like a big deal. You just plug it into a GPS in a spacecraft, and you arrive in another galaxy at a planet, and you're like, oh shit, I'm 5 minutes early. I'll just wait. and you wait 5 minutes. It's like, all right,
that would be an interesting.
You know,
That would
and
be
then-
an interesting machine to have.
and
Don't you
come
think,
back
being able
5
to
minutes
go anywhere?
before you left, so the timeline isn't disrupted. It makes sense, and a lot of sci-fi movies dig into that. And so, I'm absolutely sure a lot of these sci-fi movies, while a lot of them are junky, they do tell us bits and pieces of the truth.
Yeah, and also, isn't it scientific fact that like if you had enough energy, you could manipulate space-time. You could manipulate it.
So if you
somehow.
have a 0-point system that's powerful enough, you got plenty.
You know, 0-point energy, John. I am at the same time very skeptical of it, but very excited by it because I have built these crystal power cells, and I don't understand the physics of it. I'm not a physicist, but I can tell you that they put out a tiny little bit of power, and forever you can power an LED for 2 years off of one of these little crystal battery cells.
Piezoelectric. It's like
and you could not.
Of stone. Stone is crystal, and so it's piezoelectric.
John, I have all the parts. I have all the parts here, and I want to build. All I want is a 12-volt version of this that'll put out 1 or 2 amps. If I had that, then I know you could just reproduce that, and you could make a 12-volt crystal power cell that could put out 40 amps or power a cabin or a house. Or
crystal technology has been with us since the 1910s. You know,
says the guy with the big crystal pyramid next to him. So that's we have to believe him.
Or something. You know, and it's so. I mean, I'm not a physicist either, but if you read the physics of the bell and all these other stuff, it's not that hard. I think they figured out free energy early on, and the German experiment with the bell was trying to do more. They were pumping electricity back into it, which was very dangerous, of course, but they're the Germans. And so
you believe the Nazi bell really happened?
Oh, yeah.
That's a real thing. There's some evidence of it for sure, but I'm still on the fence.
Understand. But let me tell you this is how you do it for me. Okay, the USS Nautilus in 1955 was the world's first nuclear submarine.
Sure.
That we know about. Now, the Germans had, the story goes, I've read accounts that the Germans were trying a free energy device from Tesla that was over Unity. It was some sort of, over Unity device. It's actually quite small from what I've read in their U-boats in the late 30s, trying to get, greater range. Obviously, if you have unlimited electrical power, you don't need to surface except for air. You just use a snorkel. Now, the USS Nautilus had a very complex nuclear power plant. I actually met Admiral Rickover when I was young with my father at the Naval Academy. And I talked with him about it. And he said that they were very naive about radiation in those days. Now, a lot of the crew, from what I've gathered, they've suffered cancer and other things. They all knew the dangers going in. The Navy said, look, this is untested technology. It's dangerous. There might be some radiation. They all volunteered. So they're all heroes in my book. So they knew the dangers. The movie about the Russian shove, that's a true story, where the reactor went critical.
Yes.
Right. And 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl and all this other stuff. They know that nuclear power for ships, especially submarines, closed system, is extremely dangerous, even under the best circumstances. My guess is, because I talked to the captain of the USS John Warner Virginia submarine, and I said, look, I know there's a 0-point energy generator in there. Traditional nuclear power is too dangerous. Rickover told me. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. I can't talk about the power plant in this thing. It's classified. I said, I understand, but I'll bet it can do 90 or 100 knots underwater. And he just smiled. He said, you're a really interesting person, Mr. Warner. Nice to meet you. And so that, to me, for me, that's validation. Like, you're damn right there's a 0-point energy generator in there, because they found out early on, by the early 60s, that subs were going down and the reactors were going critical and everyone died. It's janky technology to put on a submarine. A carrier is a little different, but I bet you the big carriers now use 0-point for the last 30 years, because they need to do 30 knots plus into the wind for the jets to take off. They got to have full power. They're really fast. It makes sense. It's not, everyone thinks it's this wild technology. It's like, no, it's just been hidden from us. That doesn't mean it's that
so
hard.
Do you believe that what a lot of people say, that the free energy is being hidden by the elite,
Yes.
the ruling elite, because they.
If I was on the board of Exxon,
I agree with people that say that line. If we had this, it would change the whole world. Because imagine if you didn't need to work.
It's going to happen.
You work a third of the time. You don't have to pay for heat. You wouldn't have to pay for.
Oh no, you'll pay for it. You'll pay for it, Stephen. They'll charge.
Oh well, if you had a free energy device of your own, you wouldn't have.
No, they won't allow that.
Exactly.
No way.
You got to keep us running on that treadmill as slaves.
It provides a signal when you spin it up, because it's a torsion field. It has electromagnetic signal, and you can, on a wavelength, and they can detect that. And
you think they're trackable if somebody?
Oh yes.
Creates one.
Oh,
well, I better worry about the men in black, because I got a bunch of crystal batteries sitting 10 feet from me.
If you built an over unity free energy generator of a certain size, they'll come knocking on your door. But
Kate Schneider is here. This is Mrs. Dark Journalist is here, and she says she believes they're hiding this technology. A lot of people believe that. I believe that, just like the UFO field, though, John, you have to admit there is a whole lot of profiteering hucksters in the world of free energy.
It's like anything else.
There's a lot of fraud and a lot of fakers, and
it's rife. It always has been from the get-go, from the late 40s, early 50s. Flying saucer movies. They were trying to tell us some truth, but keep it in the fiction category. And then they just blew it up in the 50s. Somebody made the decision right around 54, and everything went dead. They were like, no anti-gravity cars, no nothing. And the CIA was like, no, just make stupid movies from now on.
Well, I do know from historical research that in the late 50s and then in the early 60s, they were really pushing this whole idea that aircraft would be electrically powered by electrogravitics or other technology. Very, very soon, you'll be getting on an airline that's electrically powered.
They thought it would.
And then all of that, and all of the major manufacturers, Boeing and all of them at the time, and they all invested heavily into researching this electrogravitics and all this technology, and then it all disappeared. Well, and that's suspect to me.
Do the math. In my new book I'm writing now, it's called Sanity Was a Luxury. That's the title. I sent you that.
Oh no.
And it's short. It's about the Gustav gun firing atomic weapons at the Russian front, and the Wunderwaffe stuff, more of that. And it's short and sweet and exciting and sad. But the thing about it is there's this meeting at Douglas Aircraft, and I've got Vannevar Bush and John G. Trump and Oppenheimer and all these bigwigs whom I presume had to deal with this during the war. With all the Foo Fighters, they were like, what the fuck? The Germans are getting technology from somewhere. Guess who? We've met with some people. Why aren't they giving us the same? And the story goes, we did get some help with not our atomic weapons, because that's a big no-no in the universe, because it rips through the dimensions and kills people, but other stuff. And the thing is, in the 50s, they did the math. Well, if we give anti-gravity to the airlines, I wrote it in there. All these Douglas guys are like, well, hell, we'll do the moon to Paris to New York run. And they're serious about it. They're like, this is going to change everything. And the military guys are going, fuck, no fucking way. We don't want you treading on our moon base or whatever, and our stuff. But there's no way, because you're going to make huge profits, because you're not going to need, much. You're going to need ground crew and things like that. But the maintenance goes way down. You're not using fuel, kerosene, Jet A, all that stuff. They figured out the numbers on all that stuff in the 50s, and they were like, shut this thing down. Because if this technology gets out too soon, and they did have a point.
Yeah, well, there definitely is historical references. T. Townsend Brown and Tesla had some kind of weird electric
right, they all had all that.
Systems.
They had it all. But imagine in 1955 if Mao Zedong got his hands on this anti-gravity stuff and said, I'm taking the world with us. We're going to conquer the world or blow it up. They do have a point that the baddies around the world would love to get their hands on some of this high tech to rule the world. And a lot of people have probably tried, but they've been quietly snuffed out. But in the 50s, it was everything was peaches and ice cream, and all of a sudden it went away.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I mean, they did the math.
I mean, there is definitely history that shows that this technology was being developed, and then all the aircraft manufacturers, Hughes and Boeing and all these, whoever they were at the time, some names have changed, but they all invested heavily in this technology, and then it all vanished. Nobody knows, there's newspaper articles claiming that we'd be riding in electrically powered,
we should have been,
craft in the 50s.
Yeah, okay, but let's you and I put ourselves into President Eisenhower's shoes. Now, the guy had a couple of strokes, so he wasn't at his top game. But let's just say he didn't have a stroke in 55. And they said, hey, these guys in Nevada, they're thinking of letting all this technology out and everything, but we're worried about the baddies in the world. I wonder in 55 how conservative a world it was back then if Ike didn't do the right thing and say, keep it in the military, because you're going to upset too many apple carts. And there's a lot of bad people in the world who make profits out of oil and coal and gas. They're not going to be happy. The Rockefellers aren't going to be happy. The Bushes aren't going to be happy. The Mellons aren't going to be happy.
Yeah. Oh, so we should blame your family.
Yeah,
we have to blame your family for the fact that we all have to go to work every day. We could have had free energy since the 50s.
Well, they would have figured out a way to keep people debt slaves even with anti-gravity and free energy. Because even though your energy bill would be really low, they would probably pay you next to nothing. They would lower your salary. I'm telling you, the guys that work for the deep state, they have some very, very good accountants and economics people. They're just like, well, how do we make this work because this technology is coming out, and Elon Musk is, letting it out with a dropper. And I don't trust that son of a bitch. He's an African.
You're not a fan of Elon Musk?
No, I think he's a CIA controlled asset, and he's.
It is a little funny to me that he is all and I give him credit though. That reusable rocket technology is something new. It's pretty useful. Yeah. But the fact that he's still using rockets. Yeah. For space travel, to me, it's a little bit behind, or I thought it's cheap. Yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah, and chemical rockets are cheap if you think about it. But building an anti-gravity black triangle probably isn't that expensive anymore. Yes, some of the rare earth metals and other things used in them, carbon fiber and everything, they're probably not cheap, but you could probably do it, and you could, that's what they're mining space with anyway. They have to. Chemical rockets will not work to mine the solar system.
What was interesting to me about Musk, John, is that when the Russian-Ukrainian war broke out, he gave Starlink technology to the Ukrainians, and I think that may be the first time that we've seen, like one of these techno billionaires try to actively influence a war.
Oh, they've been doing it in the shadows forever.
Yeah, but he just went, here's Starlink. Good luck, Ukraine. You'll always have internet thanks to me. And I don't know how that's not dangerous, because Russia could see that.
Thanks to me, Elon Musk. Thanks to me.
But he's a space lord.
He's a fucking Bond villain, full on. I mean, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, he's putting chips in monkeys' brains. He wants to do humans next. I think the Bond villain might be. But see, John, I grew up building rockets and stuff and being a science nerd. So for me, I kind of like the guy and what he tries to do, but a lot of it doesn't make sense. I get in trouble because I post memes like, look, a new coal-powered car, and I put a picture of a Tesla. Yeah. People get all pissed off, but
welcome.
I don't understand how, if you have a car that's made to drive on electricity, but you're plugging it into your house, which is powered by coal-fired. It's just, this electric car thing doesn't make sense to me, because even if everybody switched tomorrow, we would just burn more coal to make the electricity that everybody's plugging in at their house.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's not going to help the environment. It's going to help emission. It's not going to help emissions. It's just going to move those noxious emissions somewhere else.
Right. So they're in 20 years, within 20 years, they're planning on letting free energy out very slowly. But Elon Musk, I got to tell you, Ian Fleming was an MI6 guy. He knew about the world. He was an occultist. Read the book Moonraker and see if it doesn't smack home a little about Elon Musk. It's a little disturbing. I urge people to go back. The movie's silly. It's from 1980 or 79 or something. It's silly. But the book, I mean, read the premise. A billionaire wants to, trillionaire wants to start, reducing the population and building moon bases and going to Mars. I mean, that's Moonraker. It's very strange how real life is imitating art. And that's art. I mean, novels are art. And so it's very disturbing, Elon Musk and all this stuff. He's obviously taking formerly classified technology and letting it out with a tiny little dropper. And Stephen, when you make fun of Elon Musk, 75% of people are going to jump on you. I found that out on Twitter.
You're right about Twitter. That. Yeah.
There's just not enough keen minds. It was just, a rat on a treadmill. It was energy waste. It's because they're desperate. And I don't blame people for being desperate to wanting a green future. I want a green future.
Yeah, but don't you think it would make more sense if the electric car would make total sense if they sold it with some kind of a solar charger, or they put solar panels all over it, so that it
makes sense when the battery.
Think about this: you're in work for 8 hours a day, most people. So, and your car's sitting out there in the sun all day. It would make sense if they lined the thing with solar panels or had some source of power that wasn't plugging it into your house. Most people's houses are powered by coal-fired power plants. No, I agree. You're right. Don't bring this up to people. They get pissed off,
let them be pissed off. Yeah. You can't worry about that. I mean, you and I are contrarians. We're going to get mostly heat. What does that tell you? People are misinformed, and I don't blame them. By and large, they're incredibly misinformed. They don't know their history. They don't know that electric cars are 120-year-old technology. They don't know that chemical rockets started in 1921 with Robert Goddard. And it goes back even, solid fuel rockets go back to ancient China. I mean, people don't know this, so they don't put it together that we're being flim-flammed once again. And I don't care. That's why I left Twitter. It's a sea of hate and energy drain.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that, John. While you were gone, many people asked me what happened. He disappeared. He vanished. Why is he gone? And I said, to the best of my knowledge, he's fine and he's off of Twitter, but he's still, around. And I didn't even know how to contact you. I didn't know that I had your email address the whole time, so I apologize. But people were asking me, and I said, probably like a lot of people, he got sick of the toxicity of Twitter and just,
Well,
people do that.
I saw what it was. It's my God. I think they admitted it's created by the intelligence services. It's a place for information to flow in a very, very limited fashion. Those tiny little quips. That's why I did a lot of memes. Because it's
yes, actually, that's what I miss about John Warner. I'm gonna show while you're talking. I'm gonna show some of your memes because
on that.
One of the reasons me and of course others miss you being here on Twitter is because
I told everyone to fuck off. I'm not going to be liked.
Yes.
I'm not here to be liked by people. I don't care if people like me. You're not doing this. That's why I'm on here with you, because you don't give a shit. You don't care if you like me or not. If you're doing your job, if most people don't like you, that's just the way.
I must be doing a good job then. I don't know about most people. I think it's 50-50 sometimes, Well, and isn't it funny, John? Like, no matter what you do, half the people are going to love you for it, and half the people are going to hate you for it. I got some other show host busting my balls about this Anjali. Oh, you hosted her. But we actually investigated this girl, Anjali's story from beginning to end. And it's largely because of our show and a few other researchers that we know that she lied about her whole story. We got to the guy that was supposed to be like a corroborating witness, and he said none of this happened. She was high, so I stand by. But it is funny. Half the people are going to love you and half the people are going to hate you no matter what you do. So I guess you just got to do what you like,
If you're lucky.
This one's great. Look at this.
I did this for a friend and I posted it on my little forum with the physicist. But it shows you, it's so funny because people think they're real. And they might as well be. You know, I mean, the sailors, I've talked to some military people in the last year since I've been on with you, and they're like, we're getting really angry at the public thinking we're this bunch of dolts that don't know anything about UFOs. We do. We see them all the time. These are Navy personnel people. You know, the veterans that come to my farm for the wounded veteran hunt, they're like, yeah, we've seen them. And the military tells us to shut up, and we're really angry about it.
And don't you think if you wanted to see UFOs, being on a Navy ship in the middle of the ocean where you can see horizon to horizon sometimes,
bingo,
you're going to see some things. And no light pollution out there in the middle of the ocean. You can see,
they have submarine periscope footage.
I love this. No damn ET will run roughshod over us anymore.
Well, they kind of feel that way. I did that for them. I did that for the Navy guys that I know.
And there's more.
That's my new book cover, and it's about the Gustav guns. It was the biggest railway gun in the world, and the Germans
about that. Yes,
the Germans built it to take care of the Maginot Line in France. Well, they just went around the Maginot Line, and so they're like, "What are we going to do with this giant gun?" Hitler calls it his steel fist. Now they had to lay dual railway tracks. They had 6 steam engines. You know, a couple hundred freight cars with ammunition.
And how many miles could it shoot something? Remember, this is long before missiles were in widespread use.
But remember, this before the V-2 rockets. This was 42 and 43 in Russia. Now, Germans didn't have rockets that could hit anything with accuracy. Not even something big. The V-2 wasn't ready yet. And so they had this giant Gustav gun. Now, it needed dual railway tracks and 5,000 soldiers to set it up. There was an engineering battalion. There was a flak battalion. There were tanks, you know, a million 88 millimeter flak guns, you know, protecting this thing because it's a big target. You could see it by air. But the Luftwaffe had protected it really well, even though the Russians tried to attack it. But you're dealing with millions of tons of, I mean, that thing weighs 133,000 tons. It's unbelievable. And it shot these 800 millimeter 7-ton shells.
7-ton was the bullet that this thing shot?
7 tons.
A 7-ton bullet. That's a lot of explosives.
800 millimeters. It's 7.5 feet tall. There's pictures online. You can find it. There's people standing next to these giant shells. Now, it's just a big cannon. And so
I found
several years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, Joseph P. Farrell was on Daniel List, and he said, well, this gun doesn't make any damn sense. It blew up an ammunition bunker at Sebastopol, and it was one of the biggest explosions of the war, if not the biggest, before the atomic bomb. And he said, this gun makes no sense. It cost millions of Reichsmarks to build. It took them 4 years to build the damn thing. Krupp said it couldn't be done. Hitler said, oh, yes, it can. Do it. And it got built. So what are they going to use it for? Well, as Farrell said, and I agree, it makes a lot more sense if they have exotic ordnance. Now, it's very possible the German nuclear program was a lot further along than we're taught in history. It just was. Someone could argue with that with me all day long.
Well, they were definitely getting the heavy water because we had to keep trying to sabotage their heavy water.
Well, you don't even need, that's for a different nuke. They had several
different kind of device. You're right.
Right, in case one was blown up. And so they had several different scientists and physicists, Walter Gerlach, Heisenberg, Hahn, all these other physicists working on this stuff. But they probably used a little bit of uranium-235 in a 3 to 5 kiloton shell because uranium was found in the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. There's plenty of U-235. Now, how did they purify it? Probably at IG Farben. Did they have the laser going in 42? No one's quite sure. They might have. But remember the 27 million casualties on the Russian front. Disease and starvation, the gulags, Stalin treated his own people like shit. All that is true. But come on, I talked to some Russians, historians, and they say, we think it's closer to 30 million. Now, they used the thermobaric rockets, the Nebelwerfer, and they might have used Taba nerve gas, which was being developed in Poland at another factory. They might have used all three. That's a lot of people to kill. And my foreword of my book explains my theory, and it's based on Farrell and some other people's. Come on, they had to have something to kill that many Russians. I'm sorry. And it wasn't bullets, bombers, tanks. And
so you think they might have had this in operation with some sort of dirty bomb technology?
I think they used whatever they wanted. I think they used Chaba nerve gas, maybe. I think they used the Nebelwerfer rockets with coal dust and fuel oil. It makes a thermobaric weapon, which is like a small tactical nuke. And then maybe the Gustav gun did have some exotic ordnance. It was a pain in the ass to set up. It was time consuming. But I mean, if you lob a 5 kiloton uranium shell on a Russian battalion, bye-bye battalion, and one fell swoop, like 300,000 men, a whole division,
yeah, that's a lot of people to kill in one shot like that.
And
unless they had something like this, yeah.
Stalin,
but even 7 tons of conventional explosives.
Well, that was not
going
to do anything.
World War II.
Spread your troops and tanks out. It's not going to do a damn thing. And a lot of people say, no, they disabled the Gustav gun in 43 in Prague or in a railway yard somewhere. And it's like, well, what was it doing up until then? Because the Russians were advancing into western Ukraine by the late 43, early 44. And so the Germans were being pushed back. So I think maybe, and that's what my book is about, the possibility that it did do some damage with nuclear shells. They probably didn't have a lot of them. They were probably time-consuming and difficult to build. But the Germans, you got to admit, I mean, the Germans just are incredible. The more I learn about them,
and the engineering that they
did have ET help.
And here's the
deal: once you wrap your head around,
you believe that they really had ET help?
It makes sense. Herman Oberth said it. He said we had help from people of other worlds. I mean, come on.
You're right. He did say that. He did say we
have been around the Earth for millions of years interacting with us. We're part ET. We're all cosmic beings. They're just some folks from out of town. Big deal.
But if they had ET technology, shouldn't they have won the war?
So did we, but a lesser amount.
So you think both sides really? You believe that whole thing that both sides had
makes sense
access
because
to some sort of extraterrestrials?
It makes sense because our Manhattan Project was not going very well. It wasn't producing enough uranium. And there's a story about a U-boat that docks in Iceland with a bunch of uranium and gold canisters. And hey, all of a sudden we've got 2 bombs ready to go in August on Japan. Now that's fairly provable. So, yes, we got help from the Germans, if ETs were helping the Allies, and I think they did in a limited capacity, but they were like, we're not going to help you with this nuclear thing because that's a detriment to everyone in the universe. You let one of those things off and everyone in the universe feels it. And so, it makes sense. The Germans, from Frederick I, with the steel ramrods and the goose stepping to maneuver his troops more efficiently, and then, Frederick the Great, all this stuff, and unified Germany, and then Bismarck and all this stuff, the German technology curve from the early 19th century up until end of World War II was like this, straight up. And
couldn't that be just a side product of funneling huge amounts of money into their technology at the time?
Technical schools and physicists, but come on, folks. They're human beings like the rest of us. They put their pants on one leg at a time. They put their dresses on, one drindle at a time.
Here is this excellent
whole concept that's a wild story that ETs were helping the Germans. It's not. Get over it. ETs have been interacting with the human race for billions of years, if not, since before we existed. Come on, we don't own this planet. We never have. The Germans didn't get help. Oh, I saw that in Iron Sky. So what? Hollywood makes fun of it. That's a red flag.
And here's your Space Force graphics. The Chief of Secret Space Operations, U.S. Space Force, serves as principal uniformed advisor to the Secretary of the Air Force on USSF off-world activities. You made this and people thought it was real, didn't
I
they?
Floated that around D.C. I'm sure
I saw this, John, on 5 different
it's on the Pentagon
on
server
Facebook.
somewhere. It just I need to poke these people with a little stick. They probably found that very funny. But a lot of people do think these little things are genuine. And I make them, this guy's real. John Raymond's ahead of that. He'll probably see that and go, John Warner again. But, come on. Look at this. They put a UFO in a fucking
come on. Are you one of those people? Come on, John. You think just because they don't you think somebody could have just been having a goof and put that in there?
That's on their official website. I thought it was fake first. And
yeah, but that was unofficial, like a mock-up, they said now or something. They pulled it. I think.
Wink, wink, nod, nod. Ha, ha, ha. We get it. We get it.
Yeah, we're going to start our journey with John Warner.
Yeah, this stuff becomes a lot less wild when you really study it deeply with the history component. It becomes a lot less wild. I mean, so what if there's aliens? Big deal. Everyone's like, ooh, aliens. Ooh, aliens. Big deal. We're aliens.
Yeah. You've already passed that. John's already past that threshold where he's just like, the aliens are real. They're visiting us. Yeah.
I told everyone Star Trek was real. My dad's like, Star Trek's not real. And I said, Dad, I think it's going to be. I was right. I'm sure the U.S. military and corporations, that probably makes some sense. They're out there in space.
And John, you do have an interest in a lot of space things, like just to lighten the mood.
I've been to some of these military contractors.
I have to tell everybody this. John sent my children astronaut ice cream. These are freeze-dried ice cream sandwiches, and he sent them to my children. And my children went crazy for these things, so much so, John, that they teamed up. Right. And the younger one figured out how to get the hook off the pantry with a lightsaber. He could jam that. And then he sends his brother, they do this with cookies too. They, stand on the chair, get them down. So thank you for that. They went nuts over that stuff. It's freeze-dried ice cream like they give the astronauts. And how cool is that for little boys, right?
Well, that was for your cabin so you could go camping and stuff. But
yeah, well, that too. And I also want to thank you for John sent me all this cabin stuff and survival gear. And one of the things he sent me, it's not a first aid kit, John, that you sent me. You sent me like a field surgical military first aid, and there's like everything in there. And I burnt myself.
Do to anybody in an emergency. Yeah. I told all my friends, I said, look, I don't mean to be
you got to have that stuff.
But you should prep a little bit
I burnt myself real good on the wood stove.
2 of my friends prepped and no one else. They were like, Warner's crazy, fuck him. And it's like,
I'm building an apocalypse cabin, so I'm ready.
You need a giant med kit. What if we do have a national emergency and you don't have electricity or a phone? You can't call an ambulance for one of your kids. You're stuck with what you have.
Yeah, and thanks to you, John, I have this amazing medical kit. I went in and I didn't know. I burnt myself at the cabin, and I burnt myself pretty good. Blister burnt, like second, maybe, I don't know. And I knew I had a first aid kit, but I had a crappy one, had nothing in it. I go, oh, John sent me that med kit, and I went in the pack, and there was stethoscopes, scalpels, those forceps, all kinds of bandages and dressings, and burn cream. So I put burn cream on it. I put a dressing on it. It was fine in 2 days. So thank you very much.
I saved your life. I saved your life.
Well, at least saved me from being in, you look at this. The troll is still here. Sounds like a payment to me. Yes, John is bribing me with a Christmas present. Shut up, you dumbass.
Well, don't listen to those people. That's what Twitter.
No, people keep timing this guy out. I don't know what his problem is.
A lot of these are robots. They're bots and trolls.
They're always sock accounts. There's some coward who has some problem with me who doesn't want to come here with his real name and address to me, so they use the fake accounts. But I did want to get into this. This subject is fascinating to me, and that is the subject of human mutilations. And I have found various sources that claim that along with the crash retrievals came proof or evidence that the aliens were harvesting human organs or human tissue or human blood samples. And that may be the reason why they were so adamant to cover it up. It wasn't that they were afraid that people would freak out that there was aliens, but that they were afraid people would freak out that there's aliens harvesting and mutilating people and taking parts out of people.
Yeah,
what is the sources of these stories though? Is it credible?
There's many sources. I mean, I can't prove it. I mean, but let's look what we can prove. look at the severe and incredibly expensive and vast security apparatus in the United States. It's unbelievable. Everyone's like, I don't have any privacy anymore. They're listening to my cell phone. It's like, you don't know the half of it. I mean, they know where everyone is and what all your biofunctions are, if that's important to them. You know,
oh, they're getting into that now. Yeah, they're going to do biomarkers
yeah, insurance
now.
companies will drop people. But it's like they want to cover something very, very dark. What is it? That's what I ask people. It's a rhetorical question. If we've had 75, let's just say 80 years of secrecy since World War II, probably before that, but you didn't need much in the 30s. It was easy to fool people. There wasn't television hardly at all. What are they hiding? Why the secrecy? My father said it to me. The secrecy is killing this country. They all knew it, and they said that nobody on Capitol Hill could do a damn thing about it because there's so much corporate money and the CIA and the DIA and NRO.
Breakaway, deep state, yeah.
Okay, so if all this stuff is nonsense, why, folks? I mean, why? You tell me. So much secrecy. You can prove that. And they're like, oh, our enemies. What enemies? And China's not going to attack us. We're their biggest market. Russia and America is never going to go to war. You know, a couple of MiG and Phantom pilots dueling in Vietnam, big deal. We've never really fought the Russians, and we're never gonna. It's just stupid. They're hiding something massive, and everyone's like, "Gee whiz, I wonder what it is." National security, everything. Okay, you tell me. They're diddling out this dropper UAP nonsense with my cousin and Lou Elizondo and Senators Dolan, Richard Dolan and all those, Senator Gillibrand and Rubio. Why?
Yeah.
Because they have to. Somebody is poking them in the rear end with a stick, and you've got to do something, you morons. Now get out there, and do something. Do a dog and pony show. Otherwise, it would have been status quo, Stephen. Up until 2017, the military never admitted anything anomalous.
No, and in fact, Barack Obama actively lied and said that they weren't investigating UFOs or anything like that.
So
and then
Trump,
later,
so's Biden, they're all liars. They're all liars. They can't say jack shit. Trump danced around the UFO subject. What an asshole. I don't trust Trump at all. I don't trust any president or politician. I trust no one.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons you and I agree on many things, because you know what, John,
so if all this stuff
people come in here and they want me to be right or left or pick a side, and I always say the same thing. Both sides are criminals. Just because you pick one side that you decided is less criminal doesn't make they're all criminals, politicians. I don't trust any of them.
You're always voting for the same. It's only one party, and that's the deep state. I mean, I'm sorry. Peter Dale Scott wrote a book on it. Please read it. He entitled it The Deep State. Peter Dale Scott. Read it. See what you think, and let people come to their own conclusions. What is all this secrecy for? Oh, we've got another hypersonic missile, No, if you read Jane's Military Weekly, and I have U.S. Defense Command, on my YouTube channel selection. I mean, they're like, look at our new weapons, look at our new toys.
Yeah, they love to roll out the weapons. Yeah,
we can hit the moon with an electromagnetic railgun.
John, on this crash retrievals, didn't you tell me that that James Forrestal saw some sort of,
that's the story.
Organs. That is the story, right? That he saw there was the 1941 Cape Girardeau crash, and there was human body parts in that crash somehow.
Years went by, and it ate at him like a cancer. That's the story. I believe it. It makes sense to me. Now he was a Catholic. He was a religious guy. It really disturbed him, probably. And I wrote some of that into my new book. Some other people are disturbed. And, a lot of people with religious faith, they are disturbed by this. They start to realize that religion is a lie. They've been told lies. And, why would God let, why would God let genocide happen? I mean, it's so stupid. But, if all this stuff, or some of it, I think 50% of the wild stuff is true. What 50%? I don't know. But it has to be the laws of averages. What are they hiding with all this trillions of dollars in secrecy and bank fraud and all this stuff that Catherine Austin Fitts and other people have proven? What is it? And it has to be
so what about this
dirty laundry. It has to be a new missile.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, John. What would it do? What would it do if let's just do a thought experiment? What if next week or next month, the absolute smoking gun proof that those stories about President Eisenhower meeting aliens and entering into a contract with them were true, and then we tack on there was some crashes and we found all these human body parts. That, of course, would maybe explain why they've been doing everything they could to cover this all up. Because I think people might be a little bit upset if our leaders said, sure, go harvest organs from a select number of our population. Maybe they had to because they couldn't stop it if they wanted to. I don't know.
That's exactly correct. I think Ike, the story goes, Ike had an offer from 3 different groups. Now, one story says all 3 groups were in cahoots with each other. That's probably true. But maybe let's say, like in the film The 11th Green, they show a Jesus type guy. And he says, we really want to help you with their spiritual development and get rid of these atomic bombs and clean up the environment. And Ike is like, shit, I don't know what to do. And, you know, being a military man, I think he chose them more conservative and said, well, I think, you know, these other nice people are showing us how to build more weapons. So the story probably is true. But if he got a Hobson's choice, which is no choice at all, it's just 3 choices that are all the same, basically, because, you know, they were all regressive or something. I mean, I think we've been given the shaft. The human race has been given the shaft over and over and over and over and over again. And the positive ETs are like, you guys have got to learn your lesson. We'll help you learn that, but we can't do it for you. You got to learn it yourself. And I agree with that. It's like one of your kids. Is he really going to learn a lesson unless he really burns his hand on the stove? Probably not. You're going to tell him, don't touch the stove. Don't touch the stove. Ow. Now he's
honestly, their dumb dad is probably is more likely to burn the house down. I just had a big
but who cares?
I just almost burned the kitchen down. Yeah, so, but you're right about learning lessons. You know, and it is interesting to me, despite what I think of her too. Laura Eisenhower is convinced of that all those stories are true, and that's the granddaughter of Eisenhower.
Is her great grandfather? But you know, and my grandfather was involved in the OSS and all this stuff, so I believe it too. But the thing is, if ET groups are abducting humans for the body parts and genetics, okay, I don't like that either. But folks, we slaughter each other forever. I mean, millions die every day in wars and children are kidnapped off the streets of Brazil by gangs. I mean, this is a disgusting world. We slaughter each other with abandon. You know, I don't know if it's true that the ETs are taking millions of people a year, but let's say they did. You know, no one's really noticing. They're mostly poor people, as the story goes, street kids and poor people that no one's going to notice and no government's going to do anything about it. It's like, is that any worse than us slaughtering each other en masse? Not really.
You're right.
It is a fucking deal.
What we do to each other. I mean,
I don't believe that. That's crazy. That would make people go crazy. Why don't people go crazy with all the wars and all the people getting killed in the streets of the United States every day? Because we're used to war movies, cartoons. Everything is desensitized us to war, crime, and everything else. Half the stuff on TV is horror and murder. You see how the murder detective shows? There's millions of them. Apparently, in the north of England, there's more murders than anywhere else in the world. You know, according to the TV shows. It's like
I agree with you. We're a brutal species. We do all kinds of crazy things to each other. So
we're worse than they are. Okay, so they're taking people illegally. Let's say they take 1 million people a year, and we get trade goods in addition, technology in exchange. How is that worse than wars and inequality and people starving every day on purpose? It's not worse. It's just as bad. So it's just because you throw aliens in the mix, everyone loses their shit and craps their pants and cries, oh, aliens, oh no, because they've been conditioned with movies.
Well, it would sure be a tremendous waste of space if the
yes,
universe was
people are being
populated only
kidnapped.
by us.
So what? I mean, you know, look around you. We live in a disgusting world. Everyone's like, oh, aliens. So what? You know, human trafficking just for, you know, sex slavery on Earth is massive.
Yeah, that is.
Screw the ETs who are taking people. Who cares? You know, that sucks. I think it's disgusting if it's true. But it's no worse than the human trafficking that exists on this planet forever. People have been in bondage. Everyone's a slave. You know, even Elon Musk, if he's got CIA handlers, he's a slave. He bow downs to authority, whether he likes it or not, or even knows it or not.
Yeah, somebody pointed out, this makes sense, John. It says,
oh, aliens. Oh, no. You know, it's like we're worse than everyone out there.
This person says, we study every other living creature for our benefit.
Yeah.
Right? And so why would other intelligent species not do the same thing and want samples? Don't you think if we discovered another intelligent race somewhere else in the universe, we would want samples of their genetics, of their, you know, we would study them. We might grab a few.
The story is the SS people say that happens in the projects for the super soldier programs, because you can't just go out to space like we are now. We're weak and diseased. You know, we need our DNA augmented to survive out there for a variety of reasons, not just radiation and sun and all this stuff. It's like,
yeah, did you see that
2.0 human?
That's a really interesting concept. Did you see the movie Titan? That's kind of like that. They took people and they genetically altered them so that they would be perfectly suited to the world Titan.
So the question everyone needs to ask themselves is, Hollywood always been telling us bits of the truth? I think it's obvious. Operation Mockingbird was real. You can prove that. The CIA.
Oh, sure. That is definitely real. Yeah.
So why wouldn't they be? Because, you know, if I had to guess, just do an educated guess, they're prepping us for humanity 2.0 in 25 years. Everyone's going to be, you know, augmented with viruses or whatever. And Elon Musk is going to put, you know, chips in something. And everyone's going to go to work in their cubicle on their computer. And that's that. No dissent, no nothing. They own you lock, stock, and barrel. There's no free thinking. There's no nothing. It's George Orwell's 1984 on steroids. Don't
you think if that happened, there'd be pockets of resistance, though?
Absolutely. You and I would be in the hills in the cabin.
Yeah, I'll be with John Warner.
They'll just fucking waste us.
Yeah, I'll be with John Warner in the cabins, you know.
The only reason they're not killing people anymore, I think, they probably kill people, but they're not killing people in the disclosure arena anymore, is because the internet got too hot for them to do that. You know, when you kill somebody, you know, we live forever. Our souls live forever. You're just redirecting energy somewhere else. You know, metaphysically speaking, I talked to Greer about this. He had a good point. It's like, he's like, I hope they kill me because I'll be more trouble to them as an astral body.
That's an Obi-Wan.
And I am here now. And
I'll be more. You can strike me down. I will become more powerful than you could ever imagine. Maybe he watched too much Star Wars.
Not that we're Jedi Knights, you know, but no one is. But you know.
But while we're on the subject of Greer, did you buy this app? And did you think that he? Here's the problem that I have with him, John. He basically claims that he has superpowers and that he can summon alien spaceships and alien beings. And he's been caught like taking pictures of moths and things. And I just don't. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. But did you try this CE5? Did you try it?
No,
this CE5?
I don't. No? It doesn't interest me. I'm not. I see UFOs with. I have Gen 4 night vision goggles. My wife and I. You can see UFOs at night on the night sky. You know, in the Blue Ridge Mountains all the time. It's not a big deal. They're glowing balls, and then they zip out superluminal. You know,
I want to buy some night vision goggles.
The sightings and the hardware and the light shows are meaningless. And he's like, no, it's a spiritual connection. I said, that's fine. You know, go for it, man. It's not my thing. What if you summoned a demon from another dimension with, you know, a mothership? Oh no, there's no evil aliens. You know, it's like, well, good and evil don't really exist. It's just positivity and negativity. But there's some negative folks out there. It has to be as above, so below. I mean, yin and yang. I mean, yin and yang symbol is probably not from Earth. It's probably billions of years old from out in our galaxy saying, yo, light and dark. There's a little bit of light in the dark, a little bit of dark in the light. And that seems to mirror our society to a T. So I'm sorry, I think there's a lot of indifferent people out in the universe. They're like, you guys are interesting, whatever. And there's, some good people, positive people, and then there's some regressive people. My God, what a boring cosmos it would be if there weren't.
I agree with you. And listen, on the subject of people that are skeptical, I do, we try to have this free speech zone, and I think that's a fair question. Chris Johansson says, outrageous alien claims by this guy. John, do you got any proof? Because people...
No, I never said, I don't have any proof. I don't have any Admiral Wilson documents under my bed. I don't have any of that stuff. All I did was study history and have some experiences with my father around the world, traveling military bases and all that stuff. And my dad showed me the deep state, how the world works firsthand. He didn't call it the deep state. But he showed me, he's like, this is how the world works. You need to grow up. And that's all I can say is that when I always was studying UFOs and reading books when I was a young kid, starting with Chariots of the Gods. I was 10 years old at camp. Maybe Chris Mellon read it. I'm sure he did. He started off in that same vein. He went one way, I went the other. It's a disagreement in how disclosure should be managed. That's really all that's coming down between us, is a disagreement on how that's handled. And I think the U.S. government and the military has handled disclosure in the UFO file very poorly over the last 80 years. I understand that, a lot of innocent people will be tainted by the few, and I don't like that either, but it's going to happen sometime. And, whether I'm 90 years old and it happens, that's fine. I don't care. But it's like, for our children and grandchildren, I'm a grandfather, you're a father. Our kids and grandkids are going to inherit this world.
That's a scary thought. Once you have children, you start thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't care what they do to me, but they start out on a bad foot with Project Blue Book in the 60s and 70s, and now this UAP thing, and they're just doing a shit job. And, I knew when my father said, you need to go forward and come forward. I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, Dad. And he said, no, you need to do it, because you're right. After all these decades and everything, you're right. Chris is not telling the full truth. It's not good for society. All the secrecy is killing us. And, he didn't like to talk about the financial aspect of it, but he knew that, how the world works, bank fraud, and how the GDP of America is being siphoned off for deep state. I don't know what it is, but Catherine Austin Fitts thinks it's somewhere around 25 trillion. And what is the national budget every year? 2.5? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's 10 years worth of our national budget just disappears. And nobody knows what happened to it.
I ask people, it's like, I don't have proof of anything. Nothing.
And John, on another skeptical note,
what is all that secrecy for?
Have you heard the rumors? You know that some people believe that you and your family are some secret bloodline, and the ruling class and the elite.
Yeah, there's something to all that, but I don't know how big of a deal it is.
But your family is one of those families mentioned all the time.
A committee of 300 family. Now, sometimes they're just called the group, or there's different nicknames.
The family,
whatever. But I mean, we've been there since the Revolutionary War. And so the story is this. The Anunnaki created a caste system in ancient Sumeria. The lighter-skinned peoples had the better jobs, and they mated with the Anunnaki. The brown people tended to the hard city labor, and then the darker-skinned people tended to the brutal fields out in the desert. Now that you can prove that in the Anunnaki Sumerian
Epic of Gilgamesh
tablets, the epics, Ninurta and all that stuff. Caste systems, that's where we got it from. Okay, so it's come on down through history. So you've got to have a group of trusty slaves to rule, right? There's a round table of people. They're the top dogs in the human side of this. The all-seeing eye, that's ET. I mean, people can argue about that 9 ways to Sunday. It's fucking ET. The Freemasons have known this all their lives. They don't call it that. They call it, the all-seeing eye. It's ET. It's not that big a deal. And it's like they're the kings and queens, all these bloodlines, these royal bloodlines. What the fuck is that from? And it's all from ancient Sumeria. The Asian world is a little different. They have different bloodlines. But in the Western world, these bloodlines do go back to the royal bloodlines.
They intersect. People have done genealogy and shown that, like, Barack Obama is somehow related to George Bush, who's somehow related to the Queen of England and the royal family. And it's weird. It's a weird rabbit hole, John.
It is a
and
rabbit
you're part of that rabbit hole, your family, right?
Yeah. But
and here's an excellent question. I hope that you can answer.
Everyone's got weird
bloodlines. Rugged Source wants to know what 3 books you would recommend people to read.
Oh, man. 3 books? Well, don't read any of mine. Let me think.
You're some marketer. You're definitely a great marketer. Tough. Don't read any of my books.
Okay, here's one. I would read Manly P. Hall, The Wisdom of All Ages. I have a copy.
Oh, I've heard of that book. I've never read that one.
Wisdom of All Ages. I would read that. That's number 1. Got to understand metaphysics and some of the occult. It's just part of our world history. It's just part of it. You can believe what you want, you know, Nazis and the occult, whatever. But that's number 1. Number 2, I'd say The Hunt for this crowd. You know, The Hunt for Zero Point by Nick Cook.
I like that book.
Groundbreaking book. Nick's a very smart guy. He used to work for Jane's Military Weekly. I think he still does. You know, he's not a conspiracy theorist. He figured all this stuff out, and you know, I talked to him. He's not comfortable with it. I don't blame him. So that's number 2. Number 3, that's a tough one. There's a lot of good books. Maybe Peter Levenda, the
Necronomicon.
No,
he wrote that, right? He wrote that Necronomicon that was popular when I was a kid growing up.
Yeah, I would read maybe the Peter Dale Scott, The Deep State.
That's a good book.
And then go from there. Then read, you know, J.P. Farrell and Levenda and a lot of other authors, wherever your mind wants you to go. But read those 3 books. And there's The Deep State. That's got Manly P. Hall on metaphysics, and The Hunt for Zero Point, which I think lays a good basis for this German high-tech breakaway group of people. I think there's a lot of evidence for it. So I think it'd start, you know, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Yes, Bosley's correct.
You're right. There's another one by Wayne Dyer, of all people, The Secret, that sounds like a similar title. That's interesting to me.
And if you're interested in this 19th century German breakaway story, read Bosley's books, the Empire of the Wheel series. They're not easy to digest, but they're good. I'd read all of Farrell's books if I had to suggest that. I mean, there's a lot of books to read, but those will get you started. There's some older ones on UFOs that are good. I'm not, you know, that's old hat stuff, but you know, and
Steve Long is here, is a great researcher, John, and he has an excellent question for you. So he says, John once said that his dad told him long ago to, quote, move on, don't waste your time on this alien stuff, live your life, unquote. And Steve Long wants to know, how did your dad react to your public UFO conspiracy involvements in recent years?
Well, in '93, Dad told me to just forget about the MJ-12 files and forget it and just live my life and don't go down that road. That's what he said. Of course, I didn't listen to him. In his last year of life, I came forward first time with Eric Hecker, and Dad was still alive. I think he died 6 months later, but he urged me to go forward. But at that point, he was so old, you know, he had forgotten most everything, you know. But yeah, he was still alive when I did I showed him the Eric Hecker interview. He didn't, you know, he was in and out of consciousness. You know, he's very ill by that time. But yeah, there's a lot of good books to read. I mean, you have to read books. It's a pain in the ass. I'm a slow reader too. I really am. None of this is going to make sense unless you crack some books. and piece certain things together. So your mind, it's impossible to just listen to people talk about this stuff. Because when I was doing this 20 years ago, I was like, shit, I don't understand what the hell they're talking about, until I read books, and then it filtered in. And I was like, wow, this makes sense to me. But everyone's looking for proof. I got news for everyone. There's no proof of jack shit in the disclosure movement, other than, you know, things like bank fraud and the German, you know, breakaway group, German in World War II, and some other things that are fundamentals. But I go back to, why is there so much secrecy? Why are they coming out with a UAP task force all of a sudden in the last 5 years? I mean, ask yourself these questions. Why? And you're going to have, people have to fill in the blanks themselves. You can't just listen to people tell you to do that. I don't tell anyone to do anything. I say, you know, do what interests you on this subject. And if it doesn't interest you, then don't worry about it. I think it's all going to come out in the wash, you know, in 25 years. I may not be.
Yeah, but I'm sure that you can understand that many people, like me, for instance, you know, I have an intense interest in this subject, but I get frustrated because you buy a book and it seems like a lot of stories without a lot of like backup for the stories, and that gets frustrating after a while.
Well, that's why J.B. Farrell footnotes his books.
Oh yes, you're right. Some researchers do that, but a lot of people don't. He's very
footnoted his book very well. I'm not writing history books. I'm writing history novels, so I don't really footnote. But it's like, yes, some of the books they got their information from, they could have been wrong. I mean, you have to kind of wrap your mind around this. That I believe that our history is just full of holes. It's just a giant piece of foam rubber or Swiss cheese. And so it's difficult to find sources. Well, I found this source, and that doesn't really prove anything. You're just saying, well, this is where I've gotten it from. So if you want to really dig this out, it's like, proof of what? People have been seeing UFOs for 90 years. That you can prove.
Yeah.
Okay? That's proof. You know, there's pictures, films, there's the military, the U.S. government's admitting.
I would admit, yeah, like witness testimony. That's witness testimony is proof if the person is credible, and you know,
if we have
and we did talk about this. We did talk about these human mutilations, and how they're somewhat connected to the crash retrievals. But what do you think about the crash retrievals? Did we recover some technology? Did we recover some bodies?
I think we recovered all kinds of stuff. Remember, there's a story that purports that at the 509th Bomb Squadron base in New Mexico. Now, I write about this in my book. The Varian brothers, Sigurd and Russell, they invented the Klystron tube. It creates scalar waves at the microwave frequency. It was for high altitude intercept airborne radar. But the story goes, they cobbled together a really powerful hot rodded version, and somebody told them, maybe an ET, maybe not, maybe they figured it out on their own, I don't know. And they pointed it up, and they figured out it would destabilize the time-space bubble, or maybe the propulsion system on a UFO, and crash it. And all of a sudden, you've got all kinds of stuff you can glean out of that crash. Sometimes you could bring it down gently, maybe. You know, other times, like I said, I love it. The ETs show up and say, here are the keys. What do we get? You know, they're giving us a third-hand model.
A lot of people have suggested there's some sort of trading going on. Technology
makes sense. It makes sense. But there's no proof
for organic material. That's a scary thought. What if that's true, John? What if they really are giving away, you know, organic material?
Well, it's no worse than the wars
for the technology, right?
And the genocide and the human trafficking we do on Earth. It's no worse than that. It's terrible if it's true, and I think partially, to some degree, it is true. I think, but it's no more terrible than what we do to each other. It's everyone's like, oh my God, if it has to do with space, UFOs, and aliens, all of a sudden it's unsavory. You know, where have you been? You know, the Armenian genocide, the World War II genocide. You know, where were you? I mean, everyone looks to the sky and the military and the black projects. Oh, they're doing horrible things. Okay, yes, perhaps. But we're doing horrible things on Earth, and we've been doing them for 12,000 years or more. You know, if Atlantis existed, I think it did. You know, it blew itself up. Light versus the dark, bad guys versus the white hats. I mean, they destroyed almost everyone on Earth with that war, cosmic war. It makes sense. I mean, everyone's like, where's the proof? It's like the sheer weight of the circumstantial evidence and the historical record and what we do know is fact. There's your proof, in a sense.
You might be true.
Everyone wants proof.
You might be right.
Court of law, it's like the law is corrupt. How are we going to prove anything? If you shut down all the TV and all the internet and go back to the before there was radio and everything, how are we going to communicate? By newspaper or book, a pamphlet? I mean, the dissemination of information is what makes all this possible. Everyone's like, I want proof. Well, no one's going to give you proof like a document or a photo. Everything that can be faked is not proof. It's the weight of history, the mass of circumstantial and factual evidence. Millions of people for the last 80, 90, 100, probably all throughout history, the Renaissance paintings show UFOs. People have been seeing UFOs in the sky. We've been visited. I don't think it's that big a deal. I think in the Middle Ages, they were like, oh, yeah, it's the Pleiadians again. Far out. We'll trade them honey, and, they'll give us, the flintlock musket technology. Whatever it was, it's not that big a deal. It's just everyone is so freaked out when you put aliens in the mix. None of history, at least since World War II, none of American military history and world history and Cold War, everything really makes any sense unless you put ET in the mix. Then everything makes sense. But that's hard to relate.
Historically, I mean, people used to talk about communicating or meeting angels and devils. So I don't see why it's any more fantastical that it's aliens or interdimensional beings, right?
Yeah, there's 12 dimensions of the universe and infinite layers in between. It's like you shift frequency, and people freak out about that too. It's not that big a deal once you study it, and it's like, oh, that's just the way the universe operates. Everything. So
you truly believe that they are gonna disclose sometime in the next 20 years or something like that? You think we're gonna have
U.S. government?
Is the governments, the authority figures of the world, going to admit it?
They're going to admit very little, as little as possible, but they'll say, sure, we've had some crashes. Yes, there's some missing people. We don't know where they went. It's a lie, I think. And they'll just say, yeah, we got some UFOs. Go back to work. Go back to school. Learn something. We have this under control. There's nothing you can do about it. John Q. Public, Jane Q. Public, go back to work. And shut up about it and let us do our thing and you do yours. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I heard somebody. Oh, it was Jeff.
People wake up. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it was
the truth.
I heard this Jeff from Recon Strange podcast. He was talking about how when that 2016 New York Times article story came out, he showed it to his dad, and his dad said, "So what? Do I still have to go to work tomorrow? Then I don't care. This changes nothing for me that the government suddenly acknowledges UFOs are real. It doesn't change anything."
Let's just go out on a limb. I love doing that. Let's just go out on a limb. Let's say everything's true. All of it. Nachtwaffen is out there. Nazis in space. They've conquered other star systems. Corporations are in space. They're helping them do that. There's Draco reptilians. There's Pleiadians. There's the lion people of Lyra. It's all true. And within 20 years, they tell us that. Then what? What are people going to do? Do you want to have riots? You want to burn down society? What are people going to do? It's like, this is the state of play. Deal with it. We have to deal with all these bad people out in space. We have to do deals and business deals. We're going to make everyone better with free energy in your electric Tesla cars. Great. Now you know. Fuck off. Is what the government and the military is probably going to say. They're probably going to disclose 30% of all that, whatever, and they'll be like, great, now you know. Fuck off. Because what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, but don't you think that argument that one of the reasons...
Not a damn thing you can do about it. And if you want to be like the Paris riots and everything and burn everything down, fine. We'll kill you.
But don't you think that... don't you think that argument about the powers that be don't want us to know about other planets having intelligent life, because then we might move and shift to be more Earthling based and erase borders and not care so much about petty squabbles here on Earth?
Yeah, because
we might all come together, and they don't want that, right?
Well, I don't see how we're going to do that. I mean, religion keeps us apart, number one. Race keeps us apart. Class, nationality, everything keeps us apart. Our world is very precisely designed like a Mercedes Maybach sedan. Every little gear, every little switch, every little chip, micro, quantum, everything, it's engineered so perfectly. It's going to be really hard and time consuming to dismantle all this. We've got to go forward working with a lot of these people going, okay, that it's the secrecy isn't working, because you and I would be talking Mustangs and Pintos and Camaros. It's not working. It never has really worked. But since the advent of the internet, boy, it's worked like shit. And they keep saying national security. They're trying to outlaw people like you and everyone else, and saying these amateur researchers are a danger to the American people. They've mentioned that in Congress. That's frightening. I hate to tell you, that's overt fascism. They're not going to try to hide the fascism anymore. They're going to put it out in the open, and they're going to say, what are you going to do about it? And people are going to say, wave the American flag, and the British people wave their British flags, at the royal family. And it's like, yeah, we rule you. So what? What are you going to do about it? Most people just don't give a shit. They don't care. They want their 6-pack of beer. They want their glass of wine, their piece of cheese, and they want to relax and listen to music like all my friends. They don't want to hear what you and I have to say. They want to relax. They want to get on their private jet. They want to go to Monaco, or they want to go to Africa. And
but if this is all disclosed, I mean, it's got to change some people's perspective.
I guarantee you, most people won't give a flying fuck after the first year. They'll be like, "That's great, champagne up and get drunk, whatever." People can demand.
Might be right. Yeah.
People can demand. I want anti-gravity air travel free. You can demand free energy free. I want this for free. I want my fucking Tesla for $10 a month. They're not going to give you that, because the monetary fiat system, or even going to Bitcoin or electronic system, money is slavery, and they're going to keep that going for as long as they can. UFOs, ET, Germans in space, whatever, what have you. It doesn't matter, because most people just don't give a shit. And I'm sorry, but most people are like, I don't understand what you're talking about. If it's not
football, I'm sure most people are busy with real world problems.
If it's not the football or soccer or the movies or celebrity gossip or whatever it is, and they're like, UFOs and aliens, that's great. I talked to some of my smartest friends, and I'm like, I'm going to test them. They don't care about it. They're like, I'm sure there's millions of people, billions of people in the universe.
Or don't you think though that
tomorrow on Wall Street?
Don't you think that one part of history that we might be able to get some perspective with is the discovery of the New World, right? When I'm sure there was rumors there's this whole other world over there on the other side of the planet, and
we never
know nothing about it. But But you know what I mean? Like when it was discovered and then it was accepted that there's a whole new other world over there, a lot of people probably went, what can that do for me?
Right.
So maybe if there's disclosure, people, like you said, they'll want free energy. They'll want an anti-gravity car or something. They'll only be interested in it for what it can do for them.
Right. They'll want a piece of that corporate trade in space. They're like, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could be the middleman from XYZ Corporation doing business out in the solar system with other people, bringing stuff in from the galaxy, and I can get a hold of the green cubes for sale. Wouldn't the Russians? They'll pay me as the middleman. You see, the problem is we're geared towards greed and avarice and all this stuff. Even though most of us, most human beings are beautiful, loving people. That's really who we are inside. I've seen that in the people. I've seen the nastiest people in my youth become the sweetest people in their adulthood. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. And so that's who we really are. We're all in this together. Deep state, the royal families, the Committee of 300, every single person on this planet, and the people who are probably living below in cavern cities or in a higher dimensions. Doesn't matter. We're all in this shit together. And we've all got to come out of it together. And then this is what I think is starting to happen in dribs and drabs. It's like the secrecy's not working. Stephen Campion is blowing our cover every week. The secrecy.
Well, actually, John, a lot of what I do is show people that a lot of these people with their information are pretty fake, and a lot of the stuff is pretty fake. But honestly, I wouldn't still be here if I didn't think that some of it is true.
Right, that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah,
and a lot of that is the intel have been doing that for years. They control social media. And it's obvious. I would too if you put yourself in their place and put a black cowboy hat on. I would do the same thing because that's how you try to control people. But it's not working anymore. The internet changed the game. They can't destroy the internet, so they just float more mud out there and muddy the waters. But it's the secrecy. Everyone's like, oh, there's no proof of anything. And it's like, where's all that money going to the military-industrial intel corporate complex? What's it all for? Why so much secrecy? Why national security? Oh, the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians. Are you kidding? China wants to do business with us. They own half the United States.
They're buying up real estate, too. A lot of people don't know that. They're buying up real estate at massive levels right now.
The argument for enemies is pathetic. There's no argument. It's hollow. Chris Mellon is out there, oh, our enemies. Maybe he's talking about people in space. We don't know because he's very careful and bland with his words. They're very vague. Chris Mellon is very vague. So is Elizondo. So is all these UAP task force folks. They're very vague. And they're very simplistic about it all. They're treating the American people and others like children. I take umbrage with that. Other people, I understand they need a softer approach for some people. Fine. But, our history is blood-soaked and barbaric and brutal. What is the big deal if it's happening out there? I don't see the difference. Out there, here, what's the difference? You're talking about 10 miles of atmosphere and you're in space. You're living on a spaceship. That's what everyone in the bloody universe and cosmos, we all live on moons and planets. And I don't know, maybe there's a higher dimension where there's, grass fields. I don't know. But, we're all living in this cosmos together and we all got to start to get along. I mean, whatever the truth is, we're going to have to start coming to grips with, the secrecy is there for a reason. And it's not good because history always turns out worse than what they tell us in the books.
You're right about that. Here's a good point. People are asking, do you think with China point, it implies these governments are all in on it? I think they know each other and still don't necessarily like each other.
Yeah.
You think the governments are in on the secrets? The higher up elites? And no offense, John, but your family's one of them, goddamn it. You're from that Illuminati bloodline, and you guys have the secrets, right?
Well, the 5% are involved, but they're all at different levels. I guarantee you and I know more shit than Chris Mellon does. I think they gave him this much briefing. That's all he gets. Everyone is compartmentalized severely. My dad said that. He's like, you don't understand. He's like, I have a really good security clearance. Most senators don't. They're not trustworthy. My dad was a conservative Republican. He's a team player. This is not conspiracy. Governments, we were always cooperating with Russians on the bottom level. Otherwise, nuclear war really would have happened. The generals and admirals and a few of the leaders were fucking around thinking, oh my God, we're close to a nuclear war. The people on the download, they'd call up on the black phone and they were like, shit, Khrushchev, hey man, everything's cool on our end. Oh, great. Everything's cool on our end too. And they hang up. Come on, this has been going on forever. During World War II, we had Navy spies and other branches of the OSS talking to the Nazis since 1942.
Yeah, well, that's verifiable fact, yes.
It doesn't matter who wins the war. How are we going to make business work because business has to keep going. Business during a war accelerates. You know, they were always like, oh, the Nazis were like greedy, and they were like, well, we want Argentina and we want all of South America. And we probably said, okay, well, if you win, maybe, but if we win, what do we get? And this is how that's how the world is. It's done on the down low, this really deep down low, hence deep state. Peter,
you know, one of the things that's so frustrating to me about this, like tonight we're talking about
the UFO technology on the deeper levels. They have to be talking about it because during World War II, when the Foo Fighters were active, everyone on the deepest diplomatic, remember, the diplomats didn't stay silent during a war. They were always communicating. So the Japanese,
they talk, even though they're in the middle of a war. Yeah,
Australians, the English, the Americans, the French, and the Polish, whatever. They were all like, "What is going on with these Foo Fighters?" And the mystics.
That's verifiable fact that many countries were seeing them and talk. Yeah,
those things are probes. And
but you know what's frustrating to me, John, is that like tonight we're talking about human mutilations and we're talking about crash retrievals, and it does seem to me that what we get is a lot of tantalizing maybe proof or witness testimony that sometimes the witnesses we can't really trust. Somebody's in the live chat saying, is there any proof of human mutilations or crash retrievals?
Not that I know of. Any solid, real proof? No. You know, Chris Mellon mentions it. Do you take his word? I don't know. He's a former official and spy and a spook and a DIA guy. Okay, does he have more credibility than anyone else in the disclosure arena? Not in my book.
Well, he just took pictures with that Nazi girl. So yeah, his credibility is not not so good.
Everyone's looking for proof when the proof is all around you. It's just what is the definition of solid proof? Oh, the U.S. Senate said so. The judge said so in court. How do you know the judge wasn't on the take? How do you know that all those idiot senators and congressmen knew what they were doing? You don't. You can't find solid proof that even we exist. This is all somebody's dream.
Well, that's a scary thought. Maybe you're right.
Universe, electric universe, consciousness. You know, people believe in this simulation theory. You know, there might be something to that, but it's like everyone's going, I want hard proof. What is hard proof? You define it for me. Who is the governing body that says this is a real Rodin sculpture? We say so. Is that, and everyone's like, oh, well, they're officials. I guess it's proof that it's real. No, it's not. Look at the art world, Stephen. There's fakes of everything.
You're right. That much I know.
So
sure.
good it fools the best experts in the world. There was a German couple who were so good at painting that they faked so many brilliant works of art and they fooled the best minds.
Yeah, people have faked Picassos and things like that and sold them for lots of money, and only later did we find out that they were fake. So yeah,
you have.
But I would think the proof would be. I would think that the proof would be. You know, sometimes I'm a science and data guy. Like, if they do have alien crash retrieval craft, then we should be able to analyze the metal and show that it didn't come from our solar system. That would be proof to me.
Yeah.
And people have claimed that they have that, but never actually provided that.
Who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the U.S. Air Force or the Navy if they show?
Yeah, and this is the other problem that's so problematic for me.
The Navy might believe it, but what about the 5% at the top? They're like, ha, ha, ha. That's just really a couple of Volkswagens we repainted.
Yeah, and for 70 years, though.
Who knows?
The whole story was the government's covering this up. The government's covering this up. The government's covering it up. And since 2016, a whole bunch of people jumped on board with this TTSA narrative when a bunch of spooks, no offense to your cousin, 100 or is it 150 years total combined CIA experience on the TTSA board was going to tell us the truth about aliens. It didn't make any sense to me then. It still doesn't make any sense to me now. But somehow we're supposed to believe Elizondo's more credible because he worked on the inside, and your cousin, Chris Mellon, we're supposed to believe because he worked on the inside. But they don't tell us anything that's not already public domain.
Right.
Except for those 3 videos that largely prove nothing. So this is what frustrates me, because every time I go, that's it, I'm out. And then a few little breadcrumbs come along, like their side likes to call it, and it keeps people interested enough to keep going down this damn rabbit hole.
Right,
you know?
which is my theory, that they're poking sticks at the disclosure movement. We can't disclose much. You guys do it. We can't disclose much. You guys do it. And they keep doing this bullshit. And it's like, wouldn't it make everyone really suspicious and angry if a bunch of spooks came out and said, we're going to give you disclosure? I would say that's not a bad idea. It's stimulated everyone. I never would have come forward had it not been for my fucking cousin out there shooting his mouth off.
It's all his fault, John. Yeah.
No, he thinks he's doing God's work. He probably believes in God, and he probably thinks, oh, this is best for the nation. He's a patrician, conservative guy. I swear to God, he wears a tie with his pajamas to bed.
He is pretty conservative looking, yeah.
Unbelievable nerd. I'm not faulting him for that. That's just the way he is. It's the way he's wired. I'm wired differently. I've been calling scams like you have since my high school days. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This is a scam. And I'm like, my dad would go, oh, you're so cynical, Warner. God damn it. You're so damn cynical. And then 2 years later, I found out I was proven right. And he's like, God damn it, you were right. Over and over and over again. We're trying to figure out our reality. What is the truth of our reality? It's not what they've told us in the history books. We know that. So what is it? What is all this secrecy, all these wars, all this horrible stuff? What is it all for? What is all this cover up for? You have to ask yourselves that. It's like the UFO ET historical deep state, everything question issue. It's the biggest, most dynamic, most interesting issue in human history. Who we are, where we came from, where we're going, how did we get here? Who died? What did we traded for technology? What is technology doing for us, Elon Musk? My wife and I went to look at a new car for sale, and it had the screen and everything, and it was so fucking complicated. And I said, we're not going to buy it. She's like, I don't want to have to deal with it on the road. It's giant computers, the Mercedes, they're trying to kill you in a car.
Yeah, it's too much. I took a ride in a Tesla, and John, I never knew until recently that the screen was that big in a Tesla.
Yeah, and what if
you could watch a movie while you're driving and kill yourself easily? Right. I think, yeah, it was surprising to me. And everything was computerized. Everything in the car.
Everything is getting severely technical. Now, I'm a techie guy. I can figure anything out, but it's like, I don't want to do that on the fucking road. I get in my old Cadillac, a 64 Cadillac, and it's got none of that shit. You turn the key and you start up, it's got gas, you go. There's none of this, call coming in from Venus.
And you know what I liked? John? I liked old cars with carburetors that you could work on yourself. Now, if like I have some stupid thing going on in my car with like the light, they just overcomplicate everything. I have sensors in the valve stem of my car that tell the car whether the air is low in the tires, and those sensors cost like $100 a piece, and 2 of them went out. So I just have the light on that my tires need air forever because I don't want to pay the $300 to fix the sensors. It's so stupid.
Great, Elizondo going down the road. Technology. It's great for young folks. All this technology. Some of it's very interesting. I use a smartphone. My gosh, it is distracting us from the road, from driving. Everyone's diddling on their phone all the time while driving.
Oh yeah.
Not only are people going to die in droves, but they're distracting us from the really important things in life. Your family, your loved ones. Your who you are, how you treat your body, the stress of your job. I had a couple.
Well, that's another reason why.
It's like everything.
That's another reason why you and me are friendly, because you also agree that the noise is too much that they're pumping at us, and you, like me, like to turn off everything and go out to some cabin in the woods, go hunting, go fishing, do things in the real world. We're getting lost in this artificial reality that it's a construct.
Yeah. I have to pull my wife away from the city and her computer and my computer. And I said, look, we got to go down the farm. And, yes, we have to check our email and everything like that, but that's it, and we do that. But it's hard sometimes. She gets in a groove with her work. You know, and it's
me
like
too, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I get to writing, I can't stop, but you have to force yourself to do that. And so many people are turning away from that. I mean, I hope young people are seeing that they need the nature and the green space. They want everything to be green, but it's like driving a Tesla is not green. The batteries are dirty. I'm sorry, the lithium batteries catch fire. They'll have new ones.
Not to mention there's child slave labor mining all that lithium. That's a little problematic, John.
Rare earth mineral. It's not a solution. The technology is not going to get us out of this problem. It can help us get out certain technologies like 0-point energy. They're already talking about, they already cracked fusion. They said so in California, some company. You know, they're getting ready to do it.
I believe cold fusion, there's so much investment in it right now, and there's like 10 different companies trying to race to it.
You can call 0-point cold fusion if you want to. The thing is, cold fusion is more dangerous from what I've been told by certain physicists. They're like, 0 point's a lot safer than fusion, but both will come out. Now we have our green energy for what we need it for, our cars and everything like that. What worries me is, you know, it's like from 1825 to the present day, the technology curve is like that. Now that's unprecedented in our human history.
You're right. We've come along. We went from horse and buggies.
Unbelievable. And
we went from horse and buggies to here in 150 years or less.
So I talked,
and the moon.
Right.
And I traveled to the moon and back.
College students. There's George Washington University is up here. And I talked to some young people. I said, I'm a writer and a researcher. What do you think of Elon Musk and all this technology? And they had mixed answers. You know, some were worried about the technology, but then, you know, diddle, you know, there's text coming in from the, I want to create a new app to help people. And I'm like, do you really think an app is really going to help people in the world? They're like, well, I'd like to help people, but technology will help us. And I said, what about free energy? And, you know, what about all this UFOs in the news? And they're like, yeah, I heard something, but I don't know. And so I fear that young people are, I mean, I was disconnected as a college student. I was an idiot. But, you know, at least I was still reading a UFO book here and there and sort of keeping it on the burner. I didn't have good pilot, but you know, the world loved him. And until he made the H-1 Spruce Goose and Congress lambasted him, he was still the hero. And then he became a military contractor, Hughes Aerospace. And everyone said he went insane. He was a heroin addict because of his various injuries, which may have been true. But he was this guy that was beloved by millions of people. Howard Hughes is going to save the world and revolutionize air travel. Well, he did to a degree, you know, with the certain aircraft that he developed. But that's not saving the world. That's making profits for airline companies and fuel companies. And Pratt & Whitney, you know, and Wright Cyclone engines, you know. Do the math before everyone says he's the future. It's like
the DIA or the Men in Black.
What he's doing, and not a lot of it is progressive. He says he's going to build a sustainable house that only costs $100,000. And I thought, that's a really good idea. Let me dig into it. And I dug into it. And of course,
somebody's already done that.
$100,000. You can't.
Oh, it's impossible, you think?
No, they'll do it. It's just, I think it's $150,000. It's more like 200 for 100 square feet or something. He was trying to do something like that, which was a progressive idea. I want to know what happened to it, if it's really coming forward, because he seems to come out with this robot recently. What the fuck is that all about? Nobody needs a robot.
I'm a big fan of robots, so John. So I like
Japanese
that.
guys with the synthetic women, made out of latex. I mean, that's really scary. There are people in Japan, guys in Japan, so lonely.
Married to them, yeah.
Married to them. Now that's not funny anymore. That's really, really strange. Something horrible is happening to Japanese people. I'm very worried about young people. They're stopped having sex. From what I can gather, Japan is a test bed for the future society, I think, in my opinion. And it's very frightening. And don't get me started with that Hello Kitty shit. That was all mind programming. You could dig that out on your own, folks. Look into the Hello Kitty.
That's a whole other conspiracy for a whole nother night.
Yeah, you can deal with that on your own, but there's something weird about it. And I had a friend who was from Australia, and she was all into that Hello Kitty stuff. And then she's like, all of a sudden it started getting weird for her. And she said, I burned all my stuff and got rid of it, and I won't allow my kids to have it. But Japan is an interesting case. People should dig into Japan. That they're overworked. They have little times for their families. Sex is on the downswing. Everyone is depressed and suicidal. A lot of people are. Not everyone. But I always say that. It's a slip of the tongue. But it's very disturbing, the trends. And in this country, America, everyone's like, oh, no, Americans. Well, in the big cities, a lot of people are getting institutionalized. They always have been, big cities. It's like a prison. Institutionalizes you. I saw it when my years in Manhattan. It's the death of the soul. Everyone's
I was in Philly forever, and I will never go back.
Jazz music, the arts, the blues music, I loved it all. The bars, the fun, the nightclubs, I loved it all. But I had to get out of there. It was the death of the soul. My friends were like, why are you leaving? I was working in television 12 hours a day. I was like, fuck this. I'm doing the night shift. I'm a compositor on a computer. I'm just a slave in a cubicle. I did that for years. In between my racing driving, I worked in television, post-production. And I saw the whole caste system in that too. And it's disgusting. And I would get home at 5 a.m. in New York, and I'd walk through Central Park, and it was just dead. And I just felt like everyone's soul was slowly dying in Manhattan.
I felt similar. I lived in Philadelphia and worked in a cubicle for 20 years, John. And I wish I always try to live my life to have no regrets. One of my regrets is that I didn't jump out of that cubicle the first day I got in one. I should have just said the very first day, I should have said, humans aren't meant to do this. This is unacceptable. I'm not doing this for 12 hours a day for the rest of my life. Luckily, I got out when I did. I got, I was very successful, John, though, in the corporate world at one thing, getting fired, because eventually the animosity would build up and I would just lose my shit one day and say something. And you know how corporations are. You can't even speak out of turn or point out the obvious bullshit. Very
satisfied, and they should be. There's a couple of Netflix series that deal with high-tech companies and weirdness. I mean, our society is engineered. I forget the rest of the world. I'll just talk about America. America's engineered so carefully, and they get you on a track. In the 1950s, they came out with a movie, The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit. And it was about the World War II generation that stayed silent, but it showed you how mindless and conform related it was. He was going from one company to another, and he had to wear. Everyone wore a gray flannel suit. It's a uniform, and whether you're in the military or it's mostly drudgery. And even researching and a lot of my writing sometimes is drudgery. It's I worked 12-hour days in television. It was drudgery. And one guy said, "What are you doing, you dumb asshole? You're a panel beater. Go do something on your own. Use your fucking brain and your creativity. You're just sitting there." For years I worked, on a computer system in a cubicle. And I had my own office, but it was basically a cube, a 12 by 12.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
10 by 10.
No, John, when you get a promotion, they give you a slightly bigger cube and call it an office.
The corner office. You're a good little debt slave. You get the corner office. I was lucky to have a wealth so that I could attach and detach multiple times from the workaday world. And my dad, he wouldn't let me sit on my ass, and I wanted to work. I enjoyed working hard. I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I was going to ask though, but I thought it might be rude, John, if I said your family was so wealthy, you didn't have to work.
No, I have cousins and family members who never worked a day in their lives. I didn't want to be that person.
Wow.
I'm not pointing fingers, but I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be, have jobs.
Be productive, right? You need to be productive.
I worked at a car dealership selling cars in my 20s. I worked at a Ford dealership. I mean, I wanted to learn about cars and how the deals are done, but I wanted to work. My dad's like, what are you doing? And I said, I want to earn a paycheck like a regular person. God damn it. He respected that. He wanted me to work on Capitol Hill. I said, no, I'll do anything else. I went to grad school in New York. But it's like, if you're gonna be a writer or a commentator, you got to see the world and experience it at different levels. Now, I've never been to prison. I've never dug ditches. I've never worked I've worked by the highway.
John, I had a job
speeding, and I did.
I had a job digging ditches for a while.
I've been out there with the ex-con.
You know what's so funny, John, is
and I've worked in a mission for the homeless.
I got fired, and then I got fired from corporate cubicle land, and then I ended up at a job where honest to God, that was basically my job, was to dig ditches for an exterminator company. They have to do that. But I loved it. I said, this is better than a cubicle. I'll dig ditches in a thunderstorm. I don't care.
But being outside, I think, is better work.
Yeah.
Being out in nature, out inside, even if it's hard work, construction. I worked at a boatyard for 2 summers, and I did heavy construction work outside. But at least you're outside. No, from those days on, I mean, I got a horrible speeding ticket. It was a dumb thing to do. I was speeding in the city. I drag raced some guy over a bridge, and I won. And I got caught by the embassy cops, DC embassy cops, and the judge said, "You son of a bitch, I'm going to make you work alongside the highway, and then you're going to work for the homeless." And I said, "Well, my best friend's mother runs a mission in DC. I'll work there." And he said, "That's fine." And I did that.
Oh, so you got community service?
I did, and it was very, very valuable, actually. I stayed on for a while, and I wrote resumes for homeless people, and I saw the futility of people at the bottom. And this guy's like, "How am I going to get a job? All I've done is worked at McDonald's." And he's like, "How am I going to get a job?" And I had no answers for him. And this was 2007. And I had been through back surgeries, or I was going through back surgeries. And I said, God damn it, I'm going to figure out the rest of the world. Come hell or high water, there's got to be an answer to all this. And I found it. It's all wrapped up in the deep state. It's all wrapped up in how the world is engineered, the caste systems of the world, and how people have, even in America, the land of the plenty. And it's all bullshit. The American dream is bullshit. They knew that in the late 60s. It was all bullshit. When the guys went to Vietnam, and the poor guys went to Vietnam, and then the guys went and started selling bonds and insurance, life insurance, to the wives at home, and all these scams. People know this history of the Vietnam War and the civil rights and all that stuff. It showed that they were really starting to engineer society very carefully.
Yeah, there's a rich ruling class that
no more
have control.
The middle class guy, even all races in the middle class in the 50s, they were moving on up. They put an end to that shit. And now they've had an outright war on the middle class.
I agree with you on that point. It seems like now they really just want the rich ruling class, because and the poor slaves. There's nothing in the middle anymore.
Right. That was the heart of America. It was our strong middle class. The rest of the world couldn't believe it. The standard of living we had after World War II for 30 years, the standard of living until the first recession in the late 70s, that killed everyone. And I think they were worried about people, making a utopia. We were on our way to making a utopian United States. Wouldn't have been easy, but in 100 years we would have gotten it done. No, they derailed that big time. And now they're going to charge us for it.
It's definitely, there's a selfish ruling class. It's more for me and less for thee. They don't want us to be. We used to have that upward mobility. It doesn't feel like it's there anymore.
The top 10% of the world's wealthy elite they're scumbags. Some would say 20%. The 5% are read in on the deep state stuff, but the 20%, yeah, they're pretty selfish. And it can't.
Well, that's why you're the black sheep of your family, though.
Already.
Because you talk about these things.
What?
I have never, besides you, that's one of the reasons why I have, you and I have a good relationship, because I just think it's funny that you're from one of the richest, most wealthy families in the world, and you tell everybody this is the truth of this is the way it works. And I'm sure don't the rich people get pissed off at you, John, for being
most of them don't know what we're talking about. They wouldn't understand.
Okay, but if they knew, they'd be pissed off. Like John, shut up! You're going to wake up too many people.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares because they know that 99% of the world, Stephen, is not going to wake up to this anytime soon. They won't understand it, and I don't say that to be mean. It's just the damn truth. I'll be generous. The 2% of the world might be able to understand the reality of what's going on, but they don't. I mean, there's probably 5 million people around the world, deep state included, who really, really wrap their heads around this whole thing of human history, our whole deal. That's not many out of 7.7 billion. So no one cares that John Warner or Leo Zagami, he's another, from an Italian wealthy Illuminati family.
Yeah, I've listened to him too.
There's another woman, Rothschild. She did a couple of interviews. I don't know what happened to her, but she did come forward and said, "Fuck yeah, you people got to figure out the occult because we use it all the time, and those horrible things are real." I forget her name, but you can look up her.
Yeah, I've heard of her too. Yeah.
There's been a couple of wealthy elite people. There would be more that came forward, but you have to remember there's a small amount of the 1% around the world. Only maybe 5 to 10% of that 1% understands what you and I are talking about or anything. And so that's a very, very small pool to have people come forward from. Very small. I mean, I could go to my family reunion in Pennsylvania the next time. It's only going to be Chris and I. I mean, my sister understands.
You should invite me, John. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I'd like to.
That'd be awesome. Then I could get my picture with
the rest of them are completely gone. They're nice people, but they're like, oh, I just own a lumber company and my kids go to school and I don't care about that UFO stuff. That's you and Chris. You're the black sheep of the family. They call us the black sheep of the family.
That's crazy.
There's only about 130 millions alive at any given time, and we're small. But around the world, there are. I think Prince Harry of the British royal family. He said some. I don't know about UFOs per se, but he did try to come forward with some information. I think they obviously the two boys know their mother was murdered by MI5. That's the story. MI5 killed them. Diana was carrying Dodi's baby, and they didn't want the bloodlines to. Diana was of the bloodline. I mean, they take that seriously. Everyone's like, oh, Anunnaki bloodlines. Well, we're all Anunnaki ET bloodlines. Come on, folks. We got 12 strands of DNA. Apparently, that's unique in the cosmos. So, pointing at the elites and saying, oh, they're the weird bloodlines. It's like we're all, every single one of us. And the cosmos has weird, funky, weird genetic bloodlines. Now, these royal families might have a higher percentage of Anunnaki DNA. Whoopity-doo, da-da. In the old days, they wore gold crowns with jewels for psionic power enhancement because they were losing through generations their psionic and telekinesis abilities. That makes sense. You always see the medieval paintings with the halo. Well, that's higher consciousness. The crown of higher knowledge. It's on all the symbols. You see two lions with a crown. It's like two lions to overcome to get to the crown of higher knowledge. And today, that's the deep state. It's mostly not the deep state anymore. It's just people's ignorance. Those are the two lions that are preventing us from the crown of higher knowledge. And it's not people's really their fault. We've been engineered with shit schools, shit information, shit history. And we're all gonna benefit, and we all feel the negativity of it, whether you're deep state, elite, rich, poor, black or white, or not. We're all living on this little blue ball. Everyone's like, oh, us versus them. Well, okay, let's have a big war. What's that gonna do? We're gonna have to reach across the aisle and shake hands at some point. Because
I don't know if that'll ever happen, though.
I don't know.
We seem to be the most divided that we've ever been.
We are the most divided we've ever been around the world. There's no doubt about it, and it's heartbreaking. But it's going to come to a head and blow up to some degree. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. But there's going to have to come, an Armageddon, whether it's mild or wild. I hope it's mild. But our history is very violent and bloody. I don't think they're going to use big nukes. I don't think they can use the big nukes. I think they're useless. But they can kill a lot of the people. They don't need nukes anymore to kill people en masse. Oh, no. No. But remember, one person said to me, metaphysical person, and said, there's 7.7 billion people in the world. Everyone has a soul. There might be a metaphysical reason for having so many people alive at this given time. And that is to raise us up out of this mess. Because even if your soul, even if you're a Hitler or a Mussolini or a Stalin or a horrible person, you still got a soul. You're not going to be an evil person forever in every single lifetime incarnation. You could be a nurse the next life. Hitler's probably a nurse. I mean, that's how the weirdness, it's to learn. The meaning of life is to learn and then, help others in the universe. We're going to be good at that if we can overcome this really, really bad period of time that we're in. We've got to do it, for our kids and grandkids' sake. Everyone's like, oh, well, we're going to have to do something. You can't keep going on oil and can't do all this shit. They're going to move us on to free energy. They'll charge us for it at first, but hopefully over time they'll whittle that down. It'll never be utopia. No, I don't think utopia is really a good thing, but more utopian-like is what we need. A lot less violence. In other words, the yin and yang symbol is all about balance of energies in the cosmos. And right now we're way off to the negative. We need to be
I'm a real big believer in balance and yin and yang. And
everyone has duality in them. Even the nicest, sweetest people in the world. You get them starving and the wolves are coming after them. They're going to pick up a stick or a gun and kill a wolf or a person to survive. It's our instincts. Duality is everyone thinks, oh, I got to get rid of my negative side and raise my vibration. It's like, well, yeah, fine, but don't raise it too much. With a lot of this new age religion stuff is just too much positivity. It's toxic positivity. Because then you're balanced to the other way.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
You
need to be in the middle. That's what this means. Namaste. Namaste. Balance. This is balance. This is a symbol for balance. Equal pressure. Balance point. The universe and the cosmos craves balance. It's like an engine. If the parts aren't balanced, the cylinders and the crankshaft and everything, the engine's not going to run right. Our engine's not running right. It hasn't run right for 12,000 years because there's greedy people and there's probably some bad ETs in the mix, and it's a mess. It's the biggest mess probably out there in our galaxy. I guarantee it's the worst neighborhood. And so we've got to bring back the balance point. How we're going to do that, I don't know, but we got to do it. And
you mentioned that you're going to have a new book coming out. When is that coming out?
Soon. I showed you the cover for it. It's finished. I've just got to get it printed up and on Amazon and all that jazz. A couple months.
Couple of months. So you'll have another book in a couple of months. That's good news. And
it's an interesting, and it's short. It's 225 pages because I know my books are long.
That's short for you, isn't it?
It is.
No offense.
Surprised how short it was. But I didn't want to make it longer. The story is perfect as is. My wife says, "My God, don't touch it. It's perfect the way it is. It's fast paced. It moves really fast."
I kind of like those quick read books sometimes. When you don't want anything that's going to take you a month to get through.
Well, it's based on my other books. It's a sequel, so you have to kind of have knowledge of the other books.
And this is going to be on Amazon like your other books, right?
Yeah, you can read it standalone, and it's still very entertaining. And I
well,
go
maybe we could have you come back when you get the book out and I get a chance to read it. Would you do that for us?
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. So that is something that I will look forward to.
Great.
So
well, I got to go to bed, man.
Yes, I'm sorry. We went over time actually, and I didn't even realize it because
because it's interesting. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, you and I always have interesting conversations, and I'm glad that I can bring everybody along for it instead of just doing it off air. And overwhelmingly positive when you and I have a conversation. But since you're Mr. Controversy, some people are gonna not like. I don't know. I didn't yell at you enough, John. Maybe I should just yell at you right here at the end. Come back with more evidence and proof next time.
Discussion and controversy and arguments, but this is all good because it's dynamic.
Yes, I agree.
The worst thing for disclosure would be that everyone's like, okay, and nothing. We need the dynamic movement of it forward. It's not perfect. It's a lot of arguing and people pointing fingers, and you and I are critical of others, and it's fine. But it's like, got to move this narrative forward because kids and grandkids, folks. I'm sorry, if there's young people watching this, you've got their whole life ahead of you. What kind of life do you want to live?
I agree with you. Yeah,
I want to change America. I'm sorry. I want to change everything.
It's funny. You're right. Somebody once told me this. When you're young, you want to change yourself. When you have children, you start wanting to change the world because you worry about the world that you're leaving for your children, your grandchildren. And I'm at that point now where I'm like, I can't believe they're screwing everything up. What are my kids going to be like when they're my age? What's the world going to be like? It's
well, there are some young people who are trying to change the world. They always have been since the 60s. I mean, the 50s, really. They started, the young people were like, shit, this is not right. There's something wrong going on. The 60s blew everything apart. They've tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube since the 60s. No way. They tried. They got a lot of it back in the tube, but not all of it. The 60s generation really did a solid service, civil rights, everything, to the world. And a lot of metaphysical people believe that we almost broke away from our whole, metaphysical control system, mind control system, which is in play, but it's breaking down. Otherwise, there'd be no disclosure movement. There'd be no discussion. Even in Nazi Germany, at the height of the power of the Nazis, there were still groups and people trying to kill Hitler. And, that's the human spirit. We don't like this. We need to change it. That's the human spirit. No one can get rid of that. They could try, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, it was fun catching up with you. I want to thank you again for my kids. They loved your gift, and I want to thank you. And I had to try to explain to them and my wife what this package was. And I'm like, that's just John William Warner, the billionaire. His family's the Mellons, and my wife is in finance. She knew right away who you were, or the Mellon Bank and all. She goes, that's his family? And I go, yeah. And she goes, wait, somebody from the Mellon Warner family sending my kids gifts now? I go, I don't know. It was funny, though.
What am I going to say? Freeze-dried green juice? I mean, come on. That's not fun.
Yeah, the kids.
I love
that's a great gift, though, because kids are like, astronauts eat this? This is awesome, Dad.
Still do in the space station. They probably still do in the secret space program on Venus. They're eating freeze-dried ice cream.
No, they have replicators because somebody who was telling those stories watched Star Trek the week before a talk. So,
but where was Gene Roddenberry getting?
Well, listen, John.
Story. We could do a whole Star Trek story one day because I'm a real Star Trek fan.
Me too. Have you watched this Brave New Worlds? I think it's great.
I did. I liked it.
I thought it was great. I think it's good Star Trek. I didn't like Discovery so much, but this one seemed like getting back to the roots of Star Trek. Like
it
good
did.
Cast
it's an homage to the original, and it's a really good. I thought they did a great job. I'm too old to really enjoy it, but I'm a Star Trek fan because Gene Roddenberry really wanted to change the world. I mean, he really did. I met him in college. He screened one of his pilots. I was in 1981. I met him.
And that's awesome.
They're morality plays. He said, we're really trying to get messages across in television. And back then it was real risque. NBC was all over our ass.
No, but if you think about it, like Star Trek The Next Generation was a lot of morality plays too. Like the morality of Data.
They're
is he
attacking
is he not?
Justice, racism, slavery. They're attacking these things in a guise of science fiction. Science fiction. But I don't believe in science fiction. I think it's all differing levels.
Well, a lot of it comes true. Look at the iPad. That was on Star Trek in 1988.
We're all using communicate. Our cell phones are more.
Yeah, we had the flip phone and everything for a while.
They have medical scanners that are handheld. Look at the Scenar device.
Yeah,
that's back engineered alien tech too.
I love Star Trek stuff. Well, I'm going to let you go, and you know, thank you for doing the extra time as well, because everything that we covered tonight, it's hard to cram it in everything into 2 hours, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. We're getting a lot of great feedback. Please don't be a stranger and come back soon, John. You're always welcome here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Warner. So there we have it, friends. And again, for anybody who was critical, like, you know, I told you that this was just a conversation, and I'm, you know, everybody had a good time, and that's what we're here to do, as well as expand your horizons, think about new things, you know, explore possibilities. And that's what I get to when I talk to John. And certainly he's into a lot of the wild and crazy side of things that I don't delve into. But we have other things in common and things we do agree on. And I just think he's a interesting and amazing individual. And if you get a chance, really, I tend to be a student of history. Look into John's family, specifically his father, and all of the amazing historical, I don't even know how to explain it. Just look into his family and all of the history that his family was directly involved in. His father is an amazing individual, and not mentioned tonight, but John Warner's stepmother for a time was Elizabeth Taylor. That's crazy. Just an interesting guy, and we like interesting and controversial people here, and I'll never apologize for talking to any of those interesting people on air. So we're going to bounce on out of here. Went way over time tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And a final note, I know that some people may have tuned in tonight looking to hear the latest drama of this show host or that or whatever, but, and maybe I'll talk about that. You know, here's what I will say. Some people have lied and said I said things but never proved it. When I say that somebody, that we have proof and evidence here of lies that people have said about me, and is it worth arguing with people? Here's what I will say. Can anybody listen, anybody that thinks that anybody that works with or for Third Phase of Moon is credible, I really probably don't want to argue with them, because that's a ridiculous statement in and of itself. You cannot be credible at all and work with or for Third Phase of Moon. That's my opinion. Now, you heard me talk to John tonight. He's friends with Stephen Greer, and I think Stephen Greer's less than credible, to put it mildly, but he and I can agree to disagree on things like some people can do. I can't agree to disagree with other people who lie through their teeth, who lie about me, who lie to their audiences constantly. And I mean, you know, I've already made a video about that guy, like 10 times he lied about me, and he never addressed or showed proof that he didn't lie about me. So there's 10 times he lied about me. Then let's see. Third Phase of Moon has not faked anything in 5 years. We've shown 3 times they've faked things recently. He hasn't addressed that. Instead of doing that, he's going to make up stories about me, which are ridiculous. And, you know, and another proof that the guy lied, because the thing that he was talking about was like a goof or a comedy thing. Like, it was supposed to be like, you know, those wrestling videos where wrestling guys will like talk crap on each other. because they're having a beef. And that happened right after he cried about me getting first dibs on the Who's Lou documentary, and Area 503 came here first, and he started crying and complaining about it. So I thought it'd be funny to make like a goof. It was a comedy bit. If that's all this guy's got, it's amazing. That's all you got, bro? That's all you got? Me talking about making a spoof video of us having a fight? No. And does it make any sense to anybody that I would suggest to him, let's have a fake fight, after he told people that I may have pedo friends and I may indeed be a pedo myself, or that might make me a pedo? That's how it was worded. Or why would I want to have a fake fight with somebody who was doing those things and lying about me and putting me on blast? All I did was say the third phase of moon fakes things. That's all I did. I say they fake things. He lost his mind the next day, put me on blast. That's why we stopped talking. That, and suggesting I may have pedo friends and that may make me a pedophile, and also making a video mocking my disability. Why would I suggest to him after that? You know, apparently we were still talking after he did all that, but the thing that he's telling people broke the camel's back for him, the straw, was me saying, let's have a fake argument or make a video about a fake argument to get views. That's absolutely ridiculous. Why would I want to get in a fake argument with somebody who just got in a real argument with me? It doesn't make any sense. But logic makes, he doesn't need logic. All he needs is to lie just enough to his audience members to muddy the waters and make them forget. Here is the point. Rich Goofon said, third phase of moon hasn't faked anything in 5 years. We showed conclusive evidence and proof that they just faked 3 videos recently. He said, if third phase of moon, if people proved that they faked anything, I just couldn't associate with them. We proved that they faked 3 things recently. He's still associating with them. He's not a man of his word. And you know that old saying, don't argue with an idiot, he'll beat you with experience. Rich just keeps on lying through his teeth. We have the facts and the evidence, and that's another thing. Now he's telling people that I said he's a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer. Show me the clip, Rich. I never said that. I said he was going to host a Nazi. He was going to host a Nazi sympathizer. Yeah, that I did say, but I never directly called him a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer. I said he's going to defend a Nazi sympathizer. Sure. Language is important. And he's over there talking about how people twist things around. Hey, dummy, I have clips of all the things that I'm telling people you say, and I can play them. If you want to keep this up, you want to keep lying to your audience and make me prove that you keep lying to your audience, keep lying and keep lying about me. I have the clips of you saying third phase of moon hasn't faked anything in 5 years. I have the clips of you saying, if somebody proved third phase faked anything recently, I just couldn't associate with them. I have those clips, Rich. You don't have clips of all the shit that you're saying I said that I never said. I have a video on the channel if anybody's interested. 10 times Rich from Goofon lied about me. Now I can make another 10 times Rich from Goofon lied about me. And I have the facts. I have the evidence. I have all the receipts. I have the clips, Rich. You're looking foolish. And by the way, that cover story that he's telling about this, you know, I wanted to have a fake fight, that happened 6 or 8 months before we stopped talking. And I can prove that, Rich. So you might want to apologize to your audience for lying to them. And if you don't, all bets are off. I can prove when that exchange took place, Rich. Can you? That's not when we stopped talking. In fact, I was on your show after that exchange happened and we were friendly, which proves that you are right now continuing to lie to your audience because you have no other play. He's got no other play, friends. He can't answer for the fact that he keeps lying to his audience, and we keep catching him lying to his audience more to try to cover the previous times he lied to his audience. And now he is going to help this Marina Sarin girl defend her honor because she didn't do anything wrong. According to him, she didn't do anything wrong. And I think it's beautiful because lazy rambling Rich did not do 5 minutes of research. Did you know he barely knew that girl's name or how to say her name? You can hear him on the show. What's her name? What's her name? Maria? Oh, no, Marina. He barely knows her name. He did no research into her or what she's been saying, what she's been doing, the Nazi earrings she's been wearing, the SS earrings, by the way, Rich. Good. Good. You're going to platform her and you're going to help defend her honor. He's simping for a Nazi sympathizer. Great. That'll really help your numbers, Rich. And there's more lies. He goes on his show and he tells people that he had bad couple of months, his show, and it's my fault that he had a bad couple of months and he couldn't pay his mom the $100 rent. Prove it, Rich. Prove that I was directly responsible for any financial problems you had. You can't. Maybe your financial problems are caused by your own mouth because you put mouth in gear before having facts in hand. You always do. You always do because you're lazy and you won't do the work that it requires to have the facts in hand before putting that mouth in gear. There's a multitude of lies the guy's telling about me. And honestly, I don't care to waste airtime. Tonight I had a good time talking to a guy I think is an amazing and interesting character in conspiracy land. I don't need to waste time on this, Rich. You're not worth it. You're not worth it. And your numbers are in the shitter. And your numbers are going to keep being in the shitter because you do stupid things like do absolutely no research and then decide that that girl did nothing wrong. Did you research it? Did you know right now that she just got caught lying to everyone and telling everybody that she went to the police and she has a lawyer? People keep asking her for the lawyer's phone number. Crickets. But somebody looked into those claims of the police. Did you know that in the country she's in, there's records, Rich? And someone is able to prove that she never went to the police and made any reports like she claimed. So not only is she a Nazi sympathizer, she's a liar. Maybe she belongs on your show. And that's the sad truth and whatever. And I think it's so funny that you're going to bring up this goof thing. Like, that's all you got? Really? That I once joked about a goof, like we should make like wrestling videos like, ooh, I'm going to beat his ass. Ooh. You know, it was a joke. It was a spoof. And it was spitballing ideas. That's all it was. And did we do it? No. Neither of us did it. So I don't know what planet is this guy on that is the best. We caught him lying through his teeth about me 10 times. There's a video on our channel here. 10 times Rich from GoofOn lied about me. We caught him making fun of my paralyzed eye. Do you want me to play that video, Rich? How about I play that video next? Right? You think I got nothing left here? I have nothing. I have no more ammo left, right? Like, oh, I blew my load showing how third phase fake things. No, because we have more proof that third phase fake things recently. And maybe, Rich, just maybe, if you keep lying through your teeth about me, I will. I'll make a video 10 more times. Rich from GoofOn lied, but I'm not going to make it lied about me. I'm going to make it 10 more times Rich from GoofOn lied to his audience, because we can prove you lied to your audience about this fake fight thing. It took it way out of context. It was a comedy bit, a spoof, a goof, right? We can prove that you said that it's my fault that your show isn't making any money or something, right? You couldn't pay your mom the $100 rent or something, and you blamed that on me. And there's more and more and more. And we can prove that you lied to your audience and said the reason you stopped talking to me was over that fake fight thing. Hey, Rich, it can be proven when that happened, but you didn't do the work. Shit. So now you just got caught lying to your audience yet again. I've told you before. I'm going to tell you again. You're just not smart enough to do this with me. Apologize for working for hoaxer fraudsters and lying to your audience, saying they haven't faked anything, and maybe things will improve, right? When you make a mistake, and God knows I've made plenty, you acknowledge your mistakes, you learn from them, and you move on. His problem is that he's not learning. that, you know, I can catch him lying to his audience 10 times and he doesn't want to address that. He won't address that. And then he lies again on his show and says, nobody ever proved I lied about anything. How many goddamn times do I have to prove that you lied to your audience, Rich, before you'll just acknowledge it and learn from it and move on? And the greatest lie is that he says, I started all this. I have the timestamps, Rich. I have the dates. I have the calendar. It's in my previous video, 10 times you lied about me. So stop lying to people and say, I started this. You started all of this because I had an argument with Third Phase of Moon and said they fake things. And it has been well established and proven that when people say that Third Phase fake things, you attack them, even calling other show hosts pedophiles. Great. Great. But this is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves. And, you know, I don't even know what to say. Well, look at this. Sweet Chicks with kind and generous $10 says, good show. Unidentified S4, kind of generous $4.99. Super sticker, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And we have John Griffin with a kind and generous $4.99. I believe we got them all. If I did miss any, we will call them out on tomorrow night's show. So where I'm at with this goof-on mess is that I really don't want to waste any more time on this guy. I mean, it's not worth it. I make a video saying 10 times he lied, and then he says, nobody ever proved I lied. The proof is in that video that you ignored. He had to ignore it, though, because he has no answer for it. So what does he do? Let's make up new lies about Steve Cambion to make him the bad guy, even though he keeps catching me lying to my audience. It's beautiful how many times I've caught him lying to his audience. And then he keeps making it worse by lying to his audience more. And I can't help him. I can't help him. You can't help somebody that's just going to lie more to get out of the previous lies. Again, the best thing for him to do would be to acknowledge his mistake and learn from that and move on. But he's one of those guys, right, that just can never admit they're wrong, right? Never admit it. And, here's the other thing I love. He's telling everybody all the talking points. This is something that's very important, and his audience and everybody should be aware of this. Everything negative that he's saying about me, Third Phase of Moon said in our live chat before our broadcast. It's like he copied and pasted what they said and said the same thing because he is being told what to say by Third Phase. It's very clear. And again, Rich, I can go into our chat, pull all the comments that Third Phase of Moon said those things, and then pull the clips of you saying the exact same things. Are you really? Come on, man. Stop taking talking points from the idiot brothers, right? You know, I used to say the two of them together can barely make one average human, intelligence level. It looks like there's 3 of you now. And it's 3-on-1, right? Oh, and there's another thing. Ollie from Alien Attic can suck a dick. There, I said it. Because Ollie from Alien Attic lets Rich twice now go on his show and lie through his fake teeth about me for an hour. Then Ollie comes to me both times and wants me to go on the show with Rich, right? So this is great. It's like I'm being extorted for a guest appearance because Ollie lets Rich from Goof On go on his show on Alien Addict and lie through his fake teeth about me for an hour. And Ollie says, I'm not taking any sides. That's the message Ollie sends me. I'm not taking any sides, Steve, and I like you both. Bullshit, you're not taking any sides, Ollie, because if you weren't taking any sides, every time he lied about me, you would have asked him for the evidence or for a clip. Every time he said something that I never fucking said, Ollie, you would have said, you know what, Rich, you shouldn't be just saying that he said those things. Do you have a clip of him saying that? Of course, Ollie didn't do that. He just sat there and let Rich lie through his teeth about me for an hour and do his damage control tour. He did it twice now. And twice after Rich did that, Ollie says, Steve, you really should come on the show and talk face to face. I have zero obligation to help someone and give somebody a free guest appearance of mine so they can generate money and views out of a disagreement after they let somebody slander me for 2 hours on their show. So no, Ollie, I'm not coming on shit. I'm not doing that. You let them lie about me for an hour straight twice. You didn't ask them for any evidence. You didn't ask them for any proof, right? And I think that this is by design to twist my arm to make me feel obligated to go over there and defend myself. And I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And you're right, Rich. Anything I have to say, I'll say on my own show. And you can take your little victory lap because you opened the phone lines and we're going to let any critics come on. And nobody had the balls. Bullshit. Nobody was baited and stupid enough to help you get views and grift for super chats. And as far as Ollie goes, I had nothing against him, but the more I thought about it, he did. He did. That's a factual statement. Ollie from Alien Addict, who's in with the Cousins brothers too, right? It's a big club and I ain't in it. Let Rich come on and he'll let Third Phase come on and talk shit on me for an hour if they want to too, right? And you know, part of me has to respect Ollie because he says he loves the drama. It gets so many views, the drama and the fighting. That's what he likes. And so part of me respects him for that. But the other part of me says, I don't have to participate in that. And I'm not going to help somebody that is actively helping somebody lie about me and spread lies. That's called slander, Ollie. You let a man come on your show and just slander me with no evidence, no proof, and just say things. He has no evidence or proof for those things. And were I a more vicious individual, I would include you in whatever actions I take about a stupid man slandering me on live streams on the internet. Because you do have some responsibility to just not let somebody sit there and slander somebody. But of course, you love the drama that shows about the fights. So every time there's a dust up, leave it to Ollie to swoop in and get Rich to come on and talk some shit about Steve Cambion. Then Ollie can come to me and say, well, you know, you really should come on and defend yourself. Yeah, I guess I have to because you're sitting there letting him lie through his teeth. And no, I'm not going to participate. No, I'm not going to be baited into helping somebody get views and, you know, all of this. This is a joke, man. This whole thing is a joke. And again, anybody, friends, who thinks that anybody that works with or for Third Phase of Moon is at all credible or worthy of even listening to or believing when they say things is not somebody I want around me, near me. If you believe that anybody who works for Third Phase is credible or with Third Phase is credible, I can't help you. The facts are clearly established. They fake things for years and years. They've just been caught faking things recently in the past few months. They haven't changed. And the whole like joke of Rich being essentially paid to be their attack dogs. Every time somebody comes after Third Phase, here comes Rich swooping in to defend them. Maybe they should grow a set of balls and defend themselves, Rich. Maybe that's the way that things could go. And, you know, it is unfortunate because Rich could have stood on the side of truth and righteousness and doing the right thing. He could have grew a set of balls himself and decided to stand on his own 2 feet without those clowns, right? I mean, haven't you sucked all the stupid people out of their sub base that you possibly can, Rich? Do you still think that's a good relationship for you? Is it a good look for you, running around calling people frauds and fakes while you're working for the biggest frauds and fakes in this thing? I don't think so. And you can blame me for your show's lack of prosperity, but I really think it's your own making. You've done this to your own show, you know, by fat shaming people, by calling people pedos or saying they have pedo friends and that may make them pedos, by making fun of disabled people, you know, and the list goes on and on. You lost your Twitter account because you made fun of trans people. Like, this is ridiculous. The fact that I have to defend myself from a guy like that, or that somebody would let somebody go on their show and just talk shit for an hour with no evidence or proof. There's, again, oh, by the way, here's the good news. Today, I am 120 days sober. And with my 120 days of sobriety comes some new lessons in life, like learning to accept the things I can't change. Apparently, I can't change Rich. As much as I thought for a time he was worthy of redemption, or, oh, maybe he's a good guy. It's just his third phase has him hypnotized into believing that they're going to help him somehow or something. I can't change who that person is, or what they choose to do, or how they choose to blame others when their show numbers take a dive after they do all these stupid things. It's a stupid, stupid thing to fat shame people live on your show, because some people in the audience may be overweight. They'll stop tuning in, Rich. It's a stupid, stupid thing to call other show hosts pedos or imply they have pedo friends, because some people might find that objectionable and stop tuning into your show. It's a stupid, stupid thing, a really stupid thing, to defend a girl who is wearing Nazi earrings, Nazi uniforms, being on Nazi shows, talking about the good Nazis, because some people in your audience might be offended by your defense of that. So maybe, just maybe, Rich, maybe it's not me that's to blame if your show's not doing real well. Maybe it's your own choices. But again, I don't know what else to say about this. And yeah, some people love the drama. They want me to keep it up. They want me to invest more time and energy into proving that this guy lies to his audience. I've already proven it when he, and that's what I tell Ollie. When he addresses the 10 times, I already proved he lied, or apologizes for those 10 times he lied. Maybe I'll talk to him. If he apologizes for lying to his audience and saying third phase never faked anything, when we've clearly showed that they faked 3 videos recently, if he apologizes for that, maybe. But I have no obligation to talk to a guy who keeps lying about me, who keeps lying to his audience. A snake is a snake, and he can slither around any way he wants, but it's not going to get better for him. It's just not going to get better. And yeah, so that's all I got for you, friends. Now, I reserve the right to play, or you know what? I'm going to play it right now because I'm that kind of a, yeah. Let's, no, you know what? I'll do it another time. So we went way over time again, and we're now at 3 hours. So, yeah, what can I say, friends? We're going to bounce on out of here. I can take a few questions and comments from the live chat before we bounce on out of here. This guy always ragging on people. I don't know. I don't know who that's about, if that's about me or others. CR, at this point, you really can't make this up. Shaming is wrong. You always talking about this. Not really, Bob Birkins. I talk about it now when I need to, but I do think it's funny. I'm getting detention, right? Yeah. It's childish. It is stupid. It's like high school. But, I'm telling you what, though, there is a real difference between me and him. When I tell you that he lied about me, I can show you how he lied about me and prove it. He keeps saying I'm a liar, and he never proves it. Then he lies and says, nobody ever proved I lied about anything. There's a video here, Rich. 10 times you lied about me. There's proof that you lied about me in it. So stop inventing new lies, bro. It's only going to get worse for you. It's only going to get worse for you. Oh, this is what happened. Rich was making fun of a she-male porn star and hitting on her too at the same time. The weird mess that's inside his head. Yeah. I don't know. So I'm going to bounce on out of here, friends, until tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But I do reserve the right to talk about this more succinctly. Maybe we'll make a video and we'll show people more lies and more times that Rich is lying to his audience and about me. And, you know, but that's the other thing I was saying. I'm 120 days sober. Some things I just have to learn to accept. I can't change the fact that I already proved that this guy lied about me 10 times. And instead of refuting that, he says he wants to debate me. What are you going to debate? You wouldn't debate the last time, Rich. I made the video. 10 times you lied about me. Why don't we debate those 10 times? No, he invents 10 more lies. You know, I can't change that the guy won't admit that he lies to his audience, that he got caught lying about me 10 times, that he got caught lying saying Third Phase hasn't faked anything in 5 years, that he got caught lying saying, if anybody proved that Third Phase faked anything recently, I just couldn't associate with him. I mean, I can't change things. He's not going to admit that he ever lied, no matter how much evidence or proof we have here. He's just going to keep on muddying the waters. He's going to keep on crying and complaining, blaming me for the reason his show's not doing well. And by the way, if all I did was tell the truth, Rich, and because of that your show's not doing well, what does that say to you? All I did was tell the truth here, and you could have been on the side of truth and righteousness. You could have done the right thing, but instead you choose to stay with those clowns. And, you know, all I'll say, Rich, is best of luck to you. You're going to need it because it gets worse from here. When you don't admit your mistakes and learn from them, it gets worse. Oh, and there's other things he's lying about, like some mention of someone threatening his family. How dare you even imply? I categorically deny no one ever threatened. I never threatened Rich or his family. That is ridiculous. And again, where's the proof of that? Right? He just drops that like, I wasn't supposed to talk about that. Right? Great. But, you know, am I supposed to be surprised that some guy who with no evidence or proof whatsoever would say things like, you might have pedo friends, Stephen, and that might make you a pedo, would suddenly invent some threats to his family? You know, I can't change. There's some things I can't change, and I can't change in life that sometimes there's just slimy people who live on lies. There's just slimy people. And you know what you have to do? You have to cut those people out of your life like a cancer and never look back. Just roll on, because they're not going to change. And this dude's not going to change. It's just getting worse. Now he's going with this Marina girl. Good luck. Good luck, bro. Good luck. Can't wait to see how you try to defend her. And then you said she did nothing wrong. There's you lying to your audience again, and we can prove it. But is it worth the time or energy? Probably not. Some people just aren't worth the time or the energy. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I find myself. I'd like to say that this week we have a bang-up week for you. We will be debuting our new series, Murder in UFO Land, and it's a doozy. I love those talking points from Third Phase of Moon and Rich, though. How dare I, host Anjali. I stand by the Anjali story. We investigated that girl and her claims from beginning to end. Rich says I bring nothing to the table, but there's one example of a story that I did a deep dive on. I interviewed people, I investigated the whole story, and I found out the truth of the story. He's never done that. He's never done a case from beginning to end, period. Never. But somehow he's going to tell you that I'm a bad guy for interviewing that girl. I was investigating her. Part of a good investigation is interviewing witnesses. She's the primary witness to her story. Sure, I interviewed her. Then we went and researched all of her claims. And largely, we proved that most of her claims were not reality. So I stand by that work. And as far as interviewing Richard Doty, the first lie was I didn't even bother to ask him about the Benowitz case, but he he got that wrong. He lied to his audience again, because yes, I did in the actual long form interview that I did. One other time, Doty just popped up with another friend of mine, Eric the Awakening Man. I knew 2 minutes before showtime that he wanted to do that. I said, okay. In the previous interview, I asked him all about Benowitz. And in fact, I am the only person that ever got to ask Richard Doty if he regretted what happened with Benowitz, if he would do things differently. I never saw anybody ask him that. So yeah, I interviewed Richard Doty because I wanted to ask him if he felt bad about Benowitz and what happened. Did he think that was necessary? Would he do things differently? I'm the only person that ever interviewed Richard Doty and asked that, to my knowledge. And to this day, people are citing that interview. Last I heard, somebody's putting snippets of that, quotes from that interview in a book. Where's your interview that was so good that somebody's putting a snippet of it in a book, Rich? I don't bring anything to the table. And the final point I love is that this clown says, I just researched 4 or 5 guys and I just replay the same thing over and over. No, bullshit. I proved that before. We have done hundreds of stories here about hundreds of different people. Do I focus on some of them because I find them amusing? Like, let's see, David Wilcock, Corey Good, Stephen Greer, and a few of the other bigger names, Elizondo. Sure I do. But we keep researching new people, new stories constantly here. And for a guy that does absolutely zero research to complain about me not doing enough research is laughable. And finally, for anybody who thinks that I repeat myself too much or talk about the same people too much, go look on Rich's channel and see how many shows that he's done talking about Lou Elizondo. Boy, pot, kettle black. Wow, I don't do enough. I just talk about the same people, right? Corbell and Elizondo. That's majorly the 2 people he talks about. And again, I don't think he actually researched them. In my case, there's usually new stories involved. Like there was the David Wilcock GoFundMe investigation where we proved David Wilcock was running a GoFundMe scam with Pete Peterson. There was the David Wilcock, Emery Smith PayPal donation scam. That was a different story. Do you understand, Rich? There were different stories, maybe about the same people doing scummy things, but we did research on each of those stories, each of those times. But I don't think he understands this because he's just going to slag me. And Stephen Greer lying and saying that an entire company was murdered in Michigan. Of course, man, I'm going to do a story about that. And other times that Stephen Greer has been caught lying, like his free energy company or whatever. I investigate and research plenty of things, Rich. You don't. Show me anything that guy's ever actually a beginning to end story where he investigated, interviewed the witnesses, came to conclusions, determined if a story was true or not with facts and evidence and hard work. You can't show me that because he doesn't do that. He just talks over everybody else's work. And let's talk about what Third Phase did this week. Great. We want to hear more about what the hokiest, fakest, fraudiest couple of guys in UFOs did this week. Great job, Rich. You're doing great. And he wonders why his show is suffering. According to him, it's my fault. But again, I got to learn to accept, right? I just got to learn to accept that some things I can't change. I can't change anything about that guy. Can't. He's never going to admit that he lies. He's never going to admit that we've caught him lying many, many times. And in fact, he very foolishly wants to continue this disagreement. And that, my friends, would not be wise for him. Because if he thinks I can't prove that Third Phase faked more things recently, he's dreaming. And then what's he going to say to his audience? Is he going to invent more lies? Is that how this works, Rich? Every time I catch Third Phase faking more recent stuff, you're just going to invent more stuff to try to make me the bad guy instead of addressing? Why don't you address the facts and the evidence that we showed that third phase faked things in, what was it, February, March, and April of this year. You said they haven't faked anything in 5 years. Were you lying to your audience? Were you lying to everyone? I think so. And the facts and the evidence prove that he was lying to his audience, prove that he was lying to everyone about third phase faking everything. And the fact, faking things recently, pardon me, and the fact that he doesn't address the evidence we showed that third phase faked things recently, instead choosing to just attack me personally and attack my character, right? What happened, Rich? You couldn't use the pedo thing anymore. You already fired that gun. You couldn't use the making fun of me being disabled anymore. You fired that gun, right? So now you're just going to make shit up? I don't know. It's amusing to me, the lengths that this guy is willing to go to muddy the waters. And let's be clear, I don't care if you're a fan of his. He lies to his audience constantly. We've proven over and over and over again. Maybe we'll start tallying them up, Rich. You want to continue this disagreement? Okay, I'll start making more videos. I'll clip out every time you lied. I'll show the proof that you lied. We can keep going like this for a year. And where do you think you're going to be at the end of it? It's foolish. It's a foolish thing, but of course it would be foolish for me to waste any more of my time. He hasn't addressed the evidence. When he starts addressing the evidence instead of personally attacking me, maybe I'll consider a discussion about him. Until then, it's a fool's mission. I can show you, I've already showed 10 times he lied about me. He won't address that evidence. I've already showed that he lied and said third phase never faked anything in the past 5 years. We showed 3 times recently. He won't talk about the evidence that third phase faked 3 videos recently. No, he's got to just come up with personal attacks about me because somehow he thinks that'll deflect from the fact. Everybody's stupid and will forget that he never addresses the evidence that we present. Everybody's so dumb, we'll just invent new stories to make Steve Cambion the bad guy because he caught me lying to my audience many, many, many times. He caught me lying, saying third phase don't fake anything many times. He has no defense. And of course, everyone is familiar with the saying, if you can't attack the evidence, attack the person showing the evidence. That's what he's doing here. It's very clear. So I don't know. We are going to bounce on out of here, friends. But don't worry, we will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with another exciting adventure into conspiracy land. I am very happy to say that we'll have at least some part of this new series, Murder in UFO Land, out this week. And you're going to want to be here for that. It's probably the best series that I've ever produced. We're slowly getting it going. Had a lot of hiccups getting to that point, but it will be here. And I hope you'll be here to hear and witness it as well. So that's all I got for you. But I do want to say that I'm supposed to be a Christian and a forgiving man. And I try to be. But when you're having trouble forgiving someone for the first set of 10 lies they told about you, and you're working on that, and then they just come out and throw another 10 lies out, it's very difficult. You know, I'm human like everyone else. And I mean, some of my friends will tell you that I don't hold a grudge, and others will tell you I'll hold a grudge for the rest of my life. You know, I'm weird like that. It's unfortunate. This whole situation is unfortunate. You know, I feel bad for the guy. He's so short on money, begging for those super chats, right? Not having any other income that he couldn't pay his mom the money that he owed her or something. That's a terrible situation to be in. But I don't think lying is going to help him improve the situation. But here we are. So I'll be back tomorrow night, friends, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, I'm Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you, especially you, Rich. I'm going to pray that you start telling
We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts and even pillows. The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash! Praise the cash! Praise the cash! We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey.